In ancient legends, the resurrecting spirit was a deity of life restoration, dazzlingly beautiful and immensely powerful. In the silent night, the dragon's heartfelt prayer echoed, filled with longing to save its dear friend. That glorious reputation made everyone wonder if she could save Catlet, the dragon's beloved pet. The dragon bowed before the glowing magic circle, praying for the spirit's arrival with faith and hope. It vowed to pay any price in exchange for the spirit's power, pleading for her response. The magic circle burst into intense light, burning away the surrounding darkness. A young man appeared at the center of the light, dazed as if waking from a dream. The dragon froze, its eyes filled with disbelief at the absurd sight. Ohjin was also confused, his heart racing in shock. Though disappointed, the dragon stayed calm, staring at Ohjin and doubting his strange appearance. It ignored first impressions, focusing on pleading for true healing power. Ohjin looked around in confusion, mumbling that he might really be dead. He had been a veterinary student, exhausted from years of study and scolded for dozing off in class. With a meager salary after graduation, he struggled to survive, often asked to care for stray animals. His private clinic failed, the sign broken, leaving Ohjin lying in despair at his misfortune. Debt crushed him to the point of suicidal thoughts, but loud music from below pulled him back. Annoyed, thinking the neighbors were noisy again, he was suddenly swept from reality. He woke up confused, believing he had died in sleep and descended into hell. Before him lay an icy cave, a huge dragon, shining treasures, and a mystical circle that terrified him. Trembling, he asked about his fate, but the dragon urged him to heal its pet at once. Ohjin sighed, thinking that even in death he still had to be a vet. Truly hell. The hopeful white dragon begged him to save its child, stirring dust that made him cough. It placed a small, pale creature in his hands, introducing it as Kaleluos, a beloved weak bat. Ohjin looked at the fragile being, feeling his heart stir. He asked for confirmation, and the dragon proudly praised its adorable pet, leaving him speechless. He noticed the bat was exhausted, breathing weakly with lifeless eyes. His instincts as a vet kicked in, prompting him to ask professional questions about its name, age, and symptoms. The white dragon excitedly talked about the new pet, boasting that keeping bats was trendy among dragons. It explained it had found the bat trapped at a dungeon gate and brought it home, proud of the rescue. Hearing this, Ohjin felt deep disappointment, his eyes dim like a clouded moon. He realized the dragon was an irresponsible owner, raising pets just to follow trends. Feeling dejected, he still asked about the bat's diet, staying calm and thinking at least the owner hadn't abandoned it. The white dragon innocently said Carlos ate nothing, though it brought live prey daily for blood, proud that the bat shared its taste. Hearing that, Ohjin was so furious he could hardly breathe. Curses filled his mind, but he held back, trembling as he scolded under his breath while the clueless dragon questioned him again. He shouted that bats don't drink blood, and the dragon had starved it for a week, explaining the difference between fruit bats and blood feeders through trembling rage. Rebuked, the dragon nervously admitted it was its first time raising a bat, and he yelled that it must learn if it chose to keep one. Ohjin harshly criticized it for raising a pet in a freezing cave, causing Catlet to hibernate, condemning its ignorance and irresponsibility. His cutting words made the dragon fearful yet admiring, as he ranted against those who treat pets as fashion. The dragon stayed silent, bowing in reflection, unable to argue. Looking at the dying creature, it realized the value of life and its duty of care. It closed its eyes, trembling to hold back rising emotions. Then it bowed and whispered an apology to Catlet for its selfishness that caused pain. Seeing that, Ohjin's anger eased as the white dragon decided to return Catlet to nature. It spoke to Kaleluos with sincere remorse, like making a vow. Witnessing this, Ohjin thought this world wasn't as cruel as he'd feared. The white dragon thanked him, calling him the healing spirit, and asked what wish he desired as a reward. Ohjin quickly seized the chance, asking to be reborn as an oil prince or a billionaire's son. Confused, the white dragon gifted him a magic necklace that could create anything but was useless for evil. It smiled kindly, telling him to return safely. The circle shone brightly as Ohjin panicked, trying to add a wish to live again. He shouted into the blazing light, wishing to return to Bitcoin's golden age. With a poof, he vanished, and the dragon happily went back to care for Catlet. Elsewhere, Ohjin appeared, cursing regretfully for missing his chance to change his life. He stared at the necklace, muttering that it was useless. A stern male voice called him out for blocking the way, startling him. The man shoved him hard, making him fall painfully to the ground. Looking up, he realized he was in a bustling market filled with trading sounds. Someone bumped into him, making his heart race in shock. He wondered in confusion if he had been reborn or possessed another's body. A cheerful fruit seller greeted him, calling him handsome and inviting him to buy. He asked where he was, and she surprisedly said it was District B in the southern dominion of Namu Balong Doli. She added enthusiastically that this area was famous for inns and fine shops attracting travelers. Ohjin forced a smile, cursing the dragon for dumping him in such a strange place. The girl tilted her head, guessing he came from a remote region. Suddenly, a loud explosion erupted and a shop collapsed. A giant rabbit appeared, as big as an elephant, chewing carrots with glowing red eyes. By instinct, Ohjin immediately identified and analyzed the creature's behavior. The market people panicked, screaming and fleeing everywhere. He asked the girl if such monsters appeared often, and she hastily said it was Lord Beomos' pet. The girl ran away in distress, lamenting her lost sales. Ohjin turned around, just as his eyes met the giant rabbit's gaze. He spotted a little girl crying amid danger, trembling and calling for her mother. The rabbit opened its mouth, revealing knife-like teeth. Ohjin instantly dashed forward, grabbing the girl and dodging the bite. They rolled over. He winced in pain, but still asked if she was okay. The rabbit charged again, its massive body blotting out the sky. He thought they would die, blaming himself for interfering. Suddenly, the necklace in his hand shone, releasing mystical energy. The light turned into invisible chains binding the giant rabbit tightly. Ohjin was stunned to see he had subdued the beast, while the girl looked at him in awe. The crowd murmured, believing he was a powerful mage. A young woman cheered, shouting that he was a real wizard. Still confused, Ohjin muttered, wondering what he had just done. A plump man in fine clothes rushed over, shouting the name Elizabeth. He angrily scolded his servants for failing to capture the creature, threatening punishment. Then he turned to soothe the rabbit, planning to take it for a walk. But upon seeing the glowing chains, he roared furiously, demanding to know who dared bind his pet. Ohjin calmly explained he only wanted to save people from being attacked. The owner argued fiercely, and Ohjin coldly challenged him to test it himself if he doubted him. The man fell silent, while Ohjin recalled the pet owners he despised most, those who blindly defended their animals. He exploded in anger, warning that the rabbit's bite could crush a human skull. The market crowd cheered, children urging him to keep talking as he continued observing the beast. He noticed its wounds and explained they were caused by stress, advising against crowded places. The owner hesitantly admitted it had been plucking its own fur lately. He confirmed it was a severe stress symptom that could lead to illness or early death. Terrified, the man asked for care advice. Ohjin told him to keep it in quiet surroundings and limit outings. He emphasized that love must come with knowledge and responsibility in pet care. The man grew emotional, admitting Ohjin was the only one who truly loved and understood rabbits. Ohjin exclaimed in surprise, not expecting the noble lady to own such a massive creature. The Lord's eyes lit up, asking if his job related to rabbits. Ohjin vaguely nodded yes. The man clapped his hands and ordered his servants to bring offerings. A bag of coins was handed over as the man asked him to conduct regular checkups for Elizabeth. He turned to lovingly comfort the rabbit, apologizing and telling it to rest. Holding the gold bag, Ohjin sweated, whispering he never meant to stay in this world long. The crowd rushed to cheer him as a hero who made the Lord bow down. The fruit seller beamed, thanking him and offering discounts, making him awkwardly admit he had no money. The crowd laughed, pointing at the gold bag the Lord had just given. Ohjin opened it, eyes lighting up at the glittering gold inside. He bit a coin in joy while a nearby poor girl confirmed it was real, globally valid money. He dazedly imagined building a home and expanding his career with that fortune. Excited, he planned to open Ohjin Veterinary Clinic Otherworld branch, determined to restart his life. In a candlelit mystical room, he greeted a group of hooded figures attending a secret meeting. When they removed their hoods, eyes full of anticipation turned to him as Ohjin stood like a leader, announcing he would choose the worthy. In the corner, a couple watched cautiously, silently judging. He bowed his head, voice deep as he declared the start of the trial, tensing the air. Murmuring the death game begins, he was actually just holding job interviews for his clinic. The previous day, a kind noble had asked what he needed to open the clinic and offered full support. With that backing, the second branch of Ohjin's clinic opened smoothly, and he rejoiced to receive a large house from his benefactor, believing connections were the key to success. Ohjin laughed happily, joking he might love the noble, but frowned slightly, seeing the shop filled only with rabbit supplies. He cleaned up, dusted around, then shrugged it off, thinking free things weren't worth complaining about. With his own store, he began dreaming big, ambitious yet anxious, due to little knowledge of this world and dragons. He gritted his teeth, recalling the dragon who promised to send him back, cursing it for abandoning him in this bizarre place. He posted a recruitment notice seeking people skilled with animals, healthy, friendly, and willing to help him learn about this strange world. The first interview at Ohjin's clinic began, and surprisingly, someone showed up. He calmly signaled to start with the first applicant. A short-haired man named Thomas stood up, clearly introducing his family and serious personality, boring Ohjin with his normalcy. The second candidate, Philip, spoke confidently, saying his family worked with animals, which caught Ohjin's interest. Philip pulled out a gleaming knife, proudly boasting he'd handled meat since childhood. Ohjin's face turned cold. He noted potential animal butcher and sighed for the next. The third man stepped up, messy hair, dark circles, looking sleepless for days. Ohjin shuddered but politely asked why he wanted to work there. The man suddenly shouted, praising Ohjin as a great mage and begging to become his servant. Ohjin froze, sweating profusely, concluding the guy was truly insane. The man stepped closer, mumbling magic, making Ohjin panic and yell for him to stop. A calm voice rose from the corner, asking evenly when it would be their turn. The crazed man collapsed beside the stranger, face pale and trembling, crying for help. A young woman stood up, her icy gaze and stern tone offering to handle the situation, startling everyone. Before anyone reacted, she threw a lightning-fast punch straight into the man's face. He collapsed like a puppet with cut strings, leaving onlookers stunned in disbelief. She approached gracefully, introduced herself as Selena, a pet care expert skilled in first aid, making him both surprised and hopeful. He immediately deemed her perfect and ready to hire her. He excitedly announced his clinic now had its first technician. On a clear day, warm sunlight filled his new workspace with cheerful energy. Ohjin sat eagerly waiting, but his new assistant still hadn't arrived. His mood darkened as he muttered 3 words of frustration. Sighing, he admitted he might have hired her too hastily and decided to start advertising again. Suddenly, a knock startled him, and a spark of hope lit up. He rushed to open the door, smiling and inviting the visitor for lunch. Instead of her, a young man appeared, scratching his head shyly and asking for permission to enter. Ohjin looked disappointed, then asked his name. The young man smiled timidly, saying he was a customer. His mood shifted from letdown to warmth as he politely offered tea or water. He cheerfully brewed tea, thinking this was the first customer of his new branch and promising to recover financially this time. Remembering his old clinic, he recalled treating a dog whose wound had healed but whose teeth had tartar buildup. He advised the owner to clean the dog's teeth regularly, but the owner complained it was troublesome. Annoyed by the attitude, he snapped, saying to let it continue suffering and even wishing the poor pet relief through death. Ohjin shook his head in regret for his past behavior, vowing to stay polite yet charge properly, then asked what illness brought the client. The man pointed to his bag, introducing his pet Bojack, a cute salamander. Ohjin saw the red salamander and thought at least it wasn't monstrous like others here, then politely asked why it was kept in the bag. The customer cheerfully said it looked cuter that way, making Ohjin suppress his anger as he thought of his debts and asked the reason for the visit. The man replied the pet was weak and easily caught colds, while Ohjin wearily explained that was its natural trait. The man panicked, saying he had accidentally pulled off its tail, and Ohjin calmly warned him not to touch it again. The customer casually demanded it be healed, making Ohjin realize the real problem was the owner, then gently asked to examine it. He lifted the small creature and pressed lightly on its belly to check its condition. Noticing abnormalities, he was surprised it was struggling to shed skin and warned not to touch it carelessly. The creature puffed its cheeks and trembled violently. Ohjin froze, seeing its mouth swell as if about to release something dangerous. Suddenly, it opened its mouth and spat out a small fireball. Selina appeared just in time, pulling him aside so he hit the wall but escaped harm. She coldly remarked he almost got burned alive by a fire creature on his first day. Ohjin groaned, feeling worse than being burned. Regaining composure, he concluded it was a fire salamander capable of breathing flames when threatened, requiring protective gear. The customer dazedly praised Selina's beauty, while Ohjin, exhausted, asked for fireproof tools. Selina sternly questioned its origin, and the man innocently said he found it on a nearby mountain because he liked it. Hugging the salamander tightly, he nervously asked if he should release it, and Selina coldly replied keeping such a rare species was illegal. The man asked again in despair. Selina softened her tone, saying he could keep it temporarily for treatment, but must release it later. The man burst into tears, refusing to part, and ran off, shouting their love couldn't be separated. Ohjin slumped in anger, furious as both the client and his money ran away, while Selina calmly said they just went home. His face darkened as he pointed to the door, yelling that the patient vanished before any treatment. Selina bowed apologetically and hurried to chase after the runaway. Ohjin sighed wearily, wondering if his clinic's first case had ended in failure. Outside, the lively street buzzed with cheerful vendors enjoying peace, now that the Lord's giant rabbit no longer caused chaos. She rejoiced that Elizabeth had stopped rampaging, thinking life was wonderful as long as it stayed busy with the Lord. As she stood up, she saw a man rushing by with something in his arms, followed by Selina and Ohjin running like the wind. The terrified client clutched the salamander tightly in fear. The group dashed past the fruit stall, scattering goods everywhere. Exhausted, Ohjin still ran, shouting desperately for him to stop. The vendor recognized them, shocked and slightly afraid, deciding not to get involved. The panicked, heartbroken man believed they were trying to take his beloved creature away. He kept running, convincing himself this was merely a test of love between him and Bojack. Ohjin tried to explain, but his vague words only deepened the misunderstanding, making the man run faster. By noon, he slumped against a wall, gasping while Selina scolded him for poor stamina. She asked about the salamander's actual condition. Ohjin sighed, replying it hadn't shed properly, with overlapping scales that needed urgent treatment. Selina firmly insisted they must chase faster, leaving him puzzled about why. She explained that if it failed to shed, its fire energy would build up and explode, devastating the whole area. Hearing that, Ohjin shuddered, realizing the danger and urged to speed up the search. Meanwhile, the customer hid in a room, believing he had escaped them. He placed Bojack on the table, smiling brightly, convinced their love was safe. Excited, he opened a notebook to compose a song praising the bond between man and salamander. He didn't notice Bojack heating up, its body glowing red like burning coal. He kept singing passionately, humming about the power of love. The more he sang, the redder Bojack glowed, its lifeless eyes warning of looming danger. He turned back with a carefree smile, asking the creature's opinion, unaware disaster was near. A violent explosion erupted, flames engulfing the room as smoke and dust swirled, leaving him dazed and stumbling. Trembling, he peered through the smoke, seeing the salamander's shadow flickering in the fire, calling its name in confusion. Instead of anger, he gently spoke to it, worried and urging it to escape the danger. But the creature saw his movement as a threat and exhaled scorching heat, making him panic while trying to calm it. Bojack opened its mouth to form a massive fireball, the fierce energy shaking the air, yet he still believed it wouldn't hurt him. Selina arrived just in time, pulling him out of danger even as he reached toward his pet. Ohjin rushed in to restrain the creature, enduring the heat and asking Selena if going berserk meant it was attacking people. Flames spread everywhere as Selena held the customer tightly, warning they had to calm the creature before it breathed more fire. Ohjin steadied himself, facing danger while forcing calm. Suddenly, the salamander unleashed a spiraling column of fire like a flaming storm. His necklace glowed and transformed into a fire extinguisher, stunning him. Without hesitation, he sprayed foam directly at the flaming creature. White foam covered Bojack's body, making it look snow-clad, its eyes dazed and resentful. Ignoring the look, he kept spraying until the flames fully died, then admired the extinguisher with satisfaction. Though smoke lingered, the room quieted. Selena and the customer stood frozen in awe. She softly asked if he was hurt. The customer blankly repeated the words, going berserk in shock. Then he understood, realizing the cause was the failed shedding, and promised to care for it properly this time. Ohjin listened, staring doubtfully, unsure whether to believe him. He spoke harshly, irritated by the man's calmness amid the wreckage. Even injured and with his home burned, the customer firmly declared his love for Bojack unchanged, saying everything could be rebuilt. Ohjin lost patience, warning that if it happened again, not just his house, but the entire neighborhood would be in danger. The customer bowed apologetically, vowing to take better care of the creature. Ohjin suppresses his anger, rubbing his forehead in frustration at the other's naivety. He gently lifts Bojack and advises the guest not to keep wild animals as they belong in nature. With a stern tone, he adds that blind love cannot replace understanding, earning Selena's silent respect. He directly asks if the guest could control the creature should it go berserk again. The guest falls silent, lowering their head and stammering incoherently. Bojack gazes at its owner with clear eyes, and Ohjin firmly concludes that life must be understood and respected, not merely loved. He looks down at the small creature with gentle yet resolute eyes, both sharing a moment of mutual understanding. The room falls silent, broken only by the faint wind as the guest sits heavy with sorrow. The scene shifts to a sunlit forest, where rays scatter across the ground in peace. Ohjin smiles, noting Bojack looks healthier after molting, while Selena marvels at the shiny, larger scales. Bojack's body transforms, becoming grander and more majestic. Ohjin watches in awe at nature's wonder, while Selena calmly calls it evolution's rule. The owner collapses in emotion, realizing the creature has matured and will soon depart. Tears fall as he chokes out a farewell, wishing Bojack happiness and peace, a tragic goodbye. The melodramatic words make Ohjin cringe. He covers his ears, muttering that such acts only confuse the creature's instincts. Bojack darts into the forest, vanishing instantly, leaving its owner sobbing at their supposed bond. In truth, the salamander had only waited for a chance to escape, shocking the owner with harsh reality. He screams in despair, while Selena gently explains that the species knows no concept of master, seeing humans as mere servants. She patiently advises him to view it as freedom from a toxic attachment. From a distant rock, Bojack suddenly raises its head, gathering brilliant fire energy in its mouth. A soft explosion makes the three look up, and the guest tearfully asks what it means. In the sky, dazzling lights bloom like fireworks, breathtaking in beauty. The guest laughs through tears, believing Bojack's display is a final farewell. Ohjin and Selena smile as well, relieved that the first treatment ends perfectly. The scene shifts to a bustling market filled with music and song. On the square, mage poet Roisa performs with a children's choir, his voice healing like magic. Beside him, artist Jembo beats rhythmic drums, energizing the crowd. Selena and Ohjin join the crowd, she introducing the famous poet while he regrets recognizing it too late. He is surprised by Roisa's charm as the blushing audience praises him as a music-healing mage. Hearing that, Ohjin's eyes gleam with thoughts of money, moved by Roisa's talent and finally grasping art's true power. Days later, thanks to Roisa's jingle, Ohjin's clinic becomes famous, with crowds demanding treatment for their pets. Inside, Ohjin and Selena stand speechless amid chaos. She softly notes the shop just witnessed an unexpected explosion. The noise grows so loud even passing birds are startled. Outside, an endless line waits eagerly for the vet to open. Kim Ohjin steps out exhausted, eyes sunken, hoarsely telling clients to return next week, looking half dead. Selina notices his fatigue, sarcastically warning hell turn into a zombie. But for Kim Ohjin, money remains his lifeblood. Exhausted yet persistent, he keeps seeing patients, while Selina urges him to survive first. He coldly calls the next one in. 2 months after arriving in the New World, Roisa's song makes the clinic thrive, with people lining up for treatment. Kim Ohjin and Selina beam at piles of cash, he proudly declaring it as the day's revenue. A knock sounds. Selina plans to refuse since it's closed, but Kim Ohjin instantly welcomes the guest, seeing money as spiritual revival. During the exam, he gradually understands more about this world. 2 clients in line chat happily, acting familiar and excited to meet again here. One mentions their pet's loss of appetite, the other says their cat's eyes turned red, proof humans and animals remain close even here. After endless work, Kim Ohjin slumps in exhaustion, while Selina reminds him only one case remains. Perking up, he asks about it and learns it's a Chi-Uk Chow, a strong hunting dog often abandoned for its aggression. He sighs, wishing trend-following pet owners would face due consequences. Selina warns that as adults, this breed grows huge and dangerous, capable of tearing flesh, urging him to be prepared. Her words make Kim Ohjin shiver, imagining a beastly monster. Then the door opens, and a cheerful guest enters with a wooden bag. But inside is a tiny, fluffy puppy barking sweetly, more adorable than fierce. Only 2 months old, yet obedient and loyal. Selina laughs, recalling it's actually 3 months old, not fully grown as rumored. The owner anxiously says it's been limping since yesterday and asks for help. Kim Ohjin, puzzled, asks which leg hurts, then gently lifts the puppy for inspection. After observing, he concludes its bones are perfectly normal for its age. Lifting its paw, he spots a small thorn embedded, making the puppy tremble in pain. He swiftly removes the thorn and bandages the wound. After treatment, Chi-Uk rolls around happily, looking much livelier. Ohjin sees it as a tiny ball of yarn, chuckling softly. Selina notices his lifted mood and smiles warmly. She asks if he likes the puppy or if he's just glad work is done. He tiredly replies, wondering why she even asks. Selina jokes it's rare to see him happy over something not money-related. Ohjin gazes out the street, sighing that no serious cases appeared today. He reflects that being a vet is hard because it means witnessing animals' pain. The more he bonds, the more it hurts, so he's learned to guard his emotions. He recalls once raging at an owner who abandoned their pet for leisure, growing to hate such people. The memory makes him sigh. Then he tells Selina to clean up as dusk falls. Walking off, he says if she wants to leave early, she'd better help. Suddenly, a man appears at the door, crying for help in despair. Selina grips her broom defensively while Ohjin jokes, asking if she knows exorcism. The man breaks the window, rushing in and shouting Ohjin's name, startling him. He grabs Ohjin and drags him out of the clinic. Selina freezes, unable to react as her boss is pulled away. In the dark forest, the man apologizes for dragging him there. Ohjin, weary and irritated, demands to know who he is. The man introduces himself as Swai, steward of the region, needing Ohjin's help. Swai kneels, begging Ohjin to capture a wild dog, leaving him stunned. Selina appears, saying they're not a rescue team. Ohjin confirms he's just a vet. Swai pleads that time is short. Ohjin glances at Selina, wondering when she followed. Swai explains a beast occupies the mountain, halting construction and causing him great worry. Ohjin asks what happens if they fail. Swai solemnly says the army will exterminate it if it can't be controlled. The words shake Ohjin, his gaze lifting to the troubled sky. Swai begs once more, thickening the tense atmosphere. Ohjin ponders, then asks where the dog hides. He admits he's never hunted but wants to assess the situation first. Swai rejoices, saying it's just a short way ahead. Though Ohjin seems reluctant, Selina senses hell definitely help. The group follows Swai into a moonlit forest where the beast often roams. A sudden noise startles them, all tensing for defense. A weary dog appears, breathing heavily, both fearsome and pitiful. Selina identifies it as Chi-Uk Chow. Before them stands a lion-like dog, fierce with a mane-covered face and bared fangs. Selena reminds him this breed was once popular but later abandoned en masse. Ohjin notices an old, tarnished collar around the creature's neck. The three face the beast as its wild instincts ignite in its glowing eyes. He feels pity, realizing it's lived there for 2 months, long starving. A distant cry startles them. As they wonder, Ohjin accidentally stomps the ground. Chi-Uk panics, thinking it's under attack, growling and charging with tangled fur. Selena reacts quickly, pulling both Kim and Swai back to protect and escape. Kim shouts that running from a biting dog is the worst choice, leaving Selena confused. He looks back at the agitated dog, warning that such action would provoke it further. He plans to distract it, but Chi-Uk suddenly turns to look behind, freezing everyone in confusion. Selena exhales in relief, wondering why it stopped, noting the breed is usually fierce. Strangely, the dog doesn't attack, but runs to a fence and returns, making the scene puzzling. Selena concludes its thoughts are unpredictable, while Swai laments that villagers complain about its chasing habits. A thought flashes in Kim's mind as he looks at the creature with pity and brightened eyes. Swai explains villagers complain about its loud, threatening barks echoing from the mountain. Kim asks if anyone was actually injured. Swai hesitantly admits there was such an incident, his tone implying something happened. But he looks down and confesses no one was truly harmed. Kim turns to Selena, asking her to confirm the breed's loyalty, and she agrees firmly. Selena curiously asks if he's realized something special. Night falls, the moonlight faintly illuminating the scene. The next day, the group heads to a village at the mountain's foot. Selena follows, puzzled why they go to the village instead of the dog's lair, and Kim explains they must find its former owner. She's surprised, suggesting traps since time is short, but Kim says normal bait won't work. He glances at a stall, noting the food there isn't tempting enough to lure it. Selena doesn't get it, so he explains that's why it's so thin. He concludes that as a hunting dog, it values something more than food. Selena grows sad, her eyes dim as an old memory surfaces. A man in her memory waves, telling the dog to stay and guard the place, promising to return soon. The poor dog wags its tail obediently despite being abandoned. The words don't leave here echoing in Selena's mind. She whispers that in her old world, cruel people like that existed too. Ohjin burns with anger, cursing those who order then abandon their pets, vowing they'll face the consequences. In the market, rumors spread. When Ohjin inquires, villagers say Gabriel's husband, a woodcutter, once had trouble with that dog. He questions the children, who say their mothers forbid them from going up the mountain for fear of the wild dog. The village elder vaguely recalls an event 10 years ago about a dog claiming a sleeping spot. Ohjin leans against the wall, mind-heavy, guessing the dog's owner doesn't live here. Selena sighs that everyone despises it. He sighs deeply, frustrated that no one knows anything clear. A gentle-eyed woman approaches, suggesting he find a man named Jake for the truth. Ohjin turns, pressing her for details. She nods quietly and leads them onward. The scene shifts to a small wooden cabin in the forest, bathed in fading sunlight. After a long journey, Ohjin and Selena arrive exhausted as the woman explains Jake lives reclusively, rarely seen by villagers. They knock repeatedly with no response, and Ohjin wonders if the man once lived with that dog. The woman quickly points elsewhere, saying that's where they need to go. He freezes upon realizing it's a grave. She sadly explains Jake died 2 months ago in a landslide. He had lived alone but was kind. When Ohjin asks again, she confirms the timing, adding he never abandoned the dog, he simply died before returning. Standing before the grave, Ohjin grasps the tragedy as the woman pleads for him to help the waiting creature. Ohjin bows in respect, apologizing for his misunderstanding, then solemnly vows to save the dog to fulfill its master's wish. Dusk stains the forest red as Swai trembles, saying they arrived earlier than expected. 3 soldiers appear formally, announcing the mission's delay for a few days due to early completion. The commander coldly draws his gun, declaring they'll handle the dog tonight. They argue no one cares for the creature, so killing it sooner won't matter. Ohjin opens Jake's wooden house, the scent of herbs stirring curiosity about the man's profession. He suggests using something with Jake's scent to lure the dog, and Selena points to the hanging clothes. On the table, an old photo of Jake and the dog leaves Ohjin speechless at their happiness. He bites his lip, lamenting life's cruelty. Selena points to a paper on the wall depicting a strange plant that catches his eye. Ohjin is shocked to recognize it as the ghost vine, a plant he'd only seen on screen. Selena explains it's an extremely rare and valuable herb desired by all pharmacists. Ohjin's eyes brighten as an idea flashes. He looks at Jake's portrait, realizing how late it's gotten. Chiok lies weakly on the ground, gazing sadly at the sky. Suddenly, its eyes glimmer as a tender memory resurfaces. In that memory, it curls in a cave during rain, relieved by the warmth inside. They decide to wait for the rain to stop beside a small fire, though the creature still shivers. Jake gently wipes its fur with a towel, assuring it he has precautions ready. Chiok joyfully licks his hand, clinging to him affectionately. Gazing at the rain outside, Jake sighs in relief for finding a safe shelter. Inside the cave, they discover a glowing herb shining through the dark. Looking closely, Jake realizes it's the ghost vine he once read about. Overjoyed, he can't believe he's seeing it beyond the pages of a book. He hurriedly decides to return home for tools and come right back. The dog understands, retreating into a corner to let Jake work in peace. He stands, reassuring it that he can manage on his own. Before leaving, he smiles, telling it to wait, and the dog barks as a promise. Jake leaves in high spirits, believing it to be a lucky day. He leaves the dog behind in the cave, planning to fetch tools to dig up the rare plant. Under heavy rain, he rushes through the howling wind when a strange sound reaches him. He turns in shock before being swallowed by darkness. A violent landslide buries him along with the soil and herbs. In the cave, the fire weakens, leaving only faint embers. The dog keeps waiting, eyes fixed on the cave's entrance, hoping its master returns. A rainbow flashes across the sky. It barks and patiently waits day after day. Villagers passing by wonder why the dog remains there all week. Seeing it thin and filthy, they assume it was abandoned. Two men pity it and plan to offer food. But as they approach, the dog growls fiercely, highly alert. Frightened, they flee, cursing it as mad and deserving abandonment. Days and months pass, it lets no one near its cave. When feeling safe, it returns to the entrance, eyes still fixed toward Jake. Though starving and thirsty, it refuses to leave, quietly waiting in despair. In the present, the soldiers and Swai arrive, Swai urging them to stop since it's late. The soldiers ignore him, nearing the snarling dog and readying tranquilizer darts. Swai panics, pleading for delay, saying he hired help to save the creature. He earnestly insists the dog never harmed anyone and must have a reason for its behavior. A soldier coldly replies they're not there to hear touching stories. He aims at the beast, declaring their mission is to protect villagers at all costs. The dog senses danger, panting with sorrowful eyes as if knowing its fate. Just as the trigger is pulled, a hand swiftly stops the gun. Selena appears in time, eyes firm, demanding they wait since she and her partner came to save it. In the darkness, Chiuk Chiao's eyes gleam upon hearing the familiar voice. Kim Ohjin steps forward in Jake's clothes, smiling gently and extending his hand, saying he's come to take it home. The dog lifts its head, eyes shining, tail wagging wildly, overjoyed and forgetting all loneliness. It rushes to lick his hand in pure happiness, while Ohjin softly pets it, saying he's not the one it waited for. He looks at the creature lovingly, whispering for them to go home together. Deep in the forest, night is torn by a deer's terrified dash through the trees. After a long run, the deer stops, trembling, eyes filled with fear. Not far away, a dark figure hides behind a massive tree. Two golden eyes flash coldly in the shadows, radiating killing intent. A dreadful roar echoes, sending crows scattering across the night sky. The next morning at Kim Ohjin's veterinary clinic, a panicked woman bursts in for help. Ohjin looks up, frowning at the creature brought to him. Before him is a round, panda-eyed animal, Bin Bin the hamster, still happily munching food. He sighs sarcastically that it's too fat to move, as the owner cries, saying it only eats 7 meals a day. He grits his teeth and warns to control its diet, or it'll fall ill. As he finishes the case, the door opens again, and a familiar deep voice reveals the man named Sai. In the past, the two had rescued the loyal dog Mark, who guarded his master's grave for days. Thanks to Sei's dedication, Mark finally opened up and lived normally again. Ohjin smiles and asks how he's been, wondering if something happened to Mark. Sei shakes his head, eyes deep, saying he came for another reason. Then his companion sets down an old wooden box that shocks Ohjin. Inside the glass cage lies a mandrake, ginseng-like, asleep yet exuding eerie arrogance. Ohjin is astonished, and Selena explains it's a mandrake that should grow deep underground, not on the surface. Sei sighs, saying it's hard to find and precious to him. When replanted, it screamed nonstop day and night, digging itself back up. The cries tormented villagers, many suffering severe ear pain. Selena deduces it may not suit this environment. Sei laments that when asleep it's peaceful, but awake it's disastrous. He begs Ohjin to help, pleading for him to handle this thing. Ohjin hesitates, refusing since he treats animals, not plants. Sei sternly insists it's not a plant, but a demon. Ohjin mocks that he should take it to a church. The mandrake moves, green veins bulging on its head. Sei panics, shouting it's waking up, and they all flee, leaving Ohjin yelling in anger. Furious, Ohjin mutters he's never seen anyone abandon a plant. Selena calmly opens the cage, saying mandrakes are valuable herbs. She explains its roots and leaves can heal and even revive the dead. Ohjin doubts it, saying it's useless if uncontrollable. Just then the mandrake opens its eyes, and Selena warns him to cover his ears. Both hold their breath and cover their ears, waiting for the deafening scream. But it only gazes shyly at Ohjin, blushing and mumbling something. Ohjin freezes while Selena laughs, saying it likes him. He can't believe a plant could fall for him. Mischievously, Selena points to his silver necklace, suggesting he remove it. Ohjin slowly takes it off, the silver light reflecting across the room. The mandrake immediately covers its mouth, eyes sparkling as if seeing treasure. It dances excitedly in the pot. Ohjin gapes while Selena laughs, saying its mood has improved. Ohjin remarks it looks like a flower-shaped toy, and Long mutters he dislikes it. They fall silent until Selena breaks it, saying Ohjin must keep the plant. He protests fiercely, never having cared for one. That night, knocking and frantic cries jolt Ohjin awake. He groggily answers, yawning and demanding extra pay for night calls. A green-haired girl bursts in, carrying a wounded creature with wings and a lion's tail. Ohjin inspects it seriously, saying it was attacked by a beast and gravely injured. Selena appears, reminding him a mandrake leaf can stop bleeding. Ohjin immediately asks for one. As Selena approaches, the mandrake's veins bulge angrily. She tells Ohjin to ask it himself. Ohjin hesitates, but still speaks, requesting a leaf. The mandrake happily plucks one from itself, blushing as it hands it to him. Ohjin grimaces, confused by its odd reaction. As the leaf touches the wound, the bleeding stops instantly. The girl burst into tears, thanked repeatedly, promised never to forget. Ohjin told her to bring the beast for recheck and sent her off. He was exhausted, yawned, and longed for peaceful sleep. Less than half an hour later, another shout came, making Ohjin angry and curse for being disturbed. This time it was a small deer badly injured, its owner crying for help. Ohjin and Selena examined it. He suspected the creature was attacked by something strange. He concluded it wasn't a predator's wound, but torture from a madman. The deer's owner was stunned. Selena curiously asked about the new monster. Ohjin replied flatly it might be so. A trembling little girl said she knew the culprit was Baron Dolly's wolf. That wolf was often released into the forest by him to play with weak creatures. Ohjin's face darkened, shaking with rage, shouting about the injustice of ignored animal laws. Selena replied coldly that he was a noble. Ohjin went mad, cursing the rotten society, then hurried back to save the deer. A week later, the clinic was still filled with sleepless nights and endless knocking. Ohjin jumped up with dark circles and messy hair, shouting he couldn't stand this life anymore. Outside, citizens protested before Baron Dolly's mansion, chanting against animal abuse. Ohjin joined the crowd, shouting for the Baron to stop violence, and the people echoed him. Suddenly, the mansion's gates burst open. Soldiers appeared, frightening everyone. The commander shouted, asking who was Jin Ohjin. He panicked, heart racing, trembling as he admitted it was him. But instead of arresting, they bowed respectfully. The commander said they were ordered to escort him to the castle. Ohjin was puzzled. In the grand hall, a badly wounded wolf lay gasping. It was identified as a blood-fanged wolf strangely fond of sweet potatoes. Baron Dali, in tears, begged Ohjin to save the beast, promising anything he desired. Ohjin and Selina exchanged confused looks. The next morning, the town market was in chaos, people gossiping about last night's horror. Villagers spread rumors that a demonic beast appeared in the western forest, even attacking the Baron's wolf. Some swore it was a man-eating giant monster. The rumor caused panic. Many discussed fleeing the village for safety. A strong young man calmed them, declaring Baron Dali had launched a monster hunting campaign. Villagers cheered, trusting the plan and praising the Baron as a savior hero. Ohjin hid among the crowd, suspicious, recalling the weak Baron who relied on subordinates but now was hailed a hero. In the mansion, Baron Dali rolled and cried, thrashing wildly, screaming to catch the monster to avenge his wolf. His two aides helplessly tried to calm him. Outside, people still chanted "Long live the Baron," making Ohjin stand silent, mocking it as medieval propaganda. Selina noticed his doubt and curiously asked why he seemed disillusioned with the whole world. Ohjin calmly analyzed that most injured beasts came from the eastern forest, yet the wolf was attacked in the west, far apart. He realized the Baron's soldiers only searched the west, ignoring the suspicious eastern forest. His face grew thoughtful, suspecting something odd about focusing all forces on one side. Selina agreed, noting that villagers rarely entered that western forest. When Ohjin asked why, she explained it was rumored to be haunted. Just then, the innkeeper appeared and invited them inside. He placed a delicate wooden box on the table containing 3 golden glass syringes, proudly saying the order was done. He detailed the structure: glass mixed with alborium powder for heat resistance, deer hide coating for waterproofing, and gold alloy needle, all handmade. Ohjin was amazed, praising his skill and joking it was mouth-made. The innkeeper nervously admitted he could only make 1 set. Ohjin encouraged him for long-term work, but he refused. Ohjin then took out a pouch of gold and sweetly asked, what if the pay were generous? The innkeeper's eyes lit up, happily shaking hands to agree, marking a mutually beneficial partnership. Soon, improved products appeared: reinforced glass fluid containers and rubber-like flexible tubes. A precise scale and a refined maple inpatient cage were crafted, looking elegant. Ohjin presented the new hospital design: first floor for clinic and waiting, second for wards, third for living area, with future equipment planned. Selina admired the smart layout, while Ohjin proudly called it a modern hospital model in ancient times. Suddenly, a polite greeting came from the door, making Ohjin turn curiously. Selina cheered, hurried to open, letting in strong men carrying heavy sacks. Ohjin asked what they were. Selina smiled, saying it was Lunus flora, a strong sedative herb when brewed or inhaled. Ohjin's eyes lit with excitement. She pointed to each sack: brines tears for pain relief, oparian for stomach ache, boiled semiron for cough, fluna for disinfection. Ohjin was stunned by their absurd effects. Reading the notes, he was shocked to find they even cured cancer and memory loss, far beyond any medicine he knew. He imagined himself kneeling to learn as Selina sat regally teaching. She just laughed, telling him to study hard. Just then, a little girl rushed in, panting, calling Ohjin urgently outside. She reported they had caught the monster. Ohjin was startled, heart racing, hurrying after her nervously. Outside, in thick darkness, eerie roars echoed. Baron Dali's squad advanced deep into the forest where the monster hid. The thunderous roar made Ohjin tremble, whispering if this was truly the beast. Before them lay a giant iron trap, crushed and twisted as if by monstrous strength. A soldier panicked, shouting it had broken free. Another yelled to corner it. 2 hounds darted toward a dark shadow behind a tree, barking fiercely through the forest. Ohjin stared hard, filled with doubt, but when he saw clearly, everyone froze in shock. Instead of a giant monster, it was a tiny, fluffy cat the size of a fist, fur bristling, screeching shrilly amid the circle, like an angry puffball. A soldier stammered that by any look the creature was just a stray cat. Baron Dolly flushed with rage, shouting that it was the culprit, claiming his wolf's fear as proof. Ohjin glanced over, seeing the blood-fanged wolf, trembling and bristling like in a nightmare. The Baron fiercely pointed at the cat, saying its claws and teeth were evidence of cruelty. Ohjin looked at the tiny cat, likening it to a lonely child using violence to defend itself, anger surging within. When the Baron ordered the net thrown, soldiers acted instantly. Ohjin froze, fearing they truly meant to catch it. The Baron kept yelling to chain the creature. A bald soldier coldly replied in obedience. The cat struggled desperately in the net, crying pitifully, while the Baron laughed and ordered its death. Ohjin couldn't stand it and shouted a loud no, echoing through the forest. The Baron frowned, changing tone, saying he wouldn't kill it but take it to the village for public judgment. Seeing the cruel eyes around, Ohjin realized they would torture the creature, and painful memories returned. He remembered a past life, watching a cat die on a hospital bed after human abuse. Facing the scene, Ohjin trembled with fury, grinding his teeth that they were no different from demons. The cat kept struggling, tearing the net, its desperate cries echoing. Soldiers shouted to capture it again. Ohjin yelled to stop, telling everyone to cover their mouths and noses, his voice booming through the night wind. The crowd froze, staring at him in utter confusion. Ohjin thought if they believed superstition, he'd use it. He pointed at the cat and mysteriously claimed it bore the mark of a demon. The Baron gaped, bewildered, asking again about the mark. Selina curiously chimed in, eyes gleaming, asking what the demon's mark meant. Ohjin pointed at the M on the cat's forehead, dramatically claiming it was the sign of the great plague demon named Corona. Hearing the strange name, everyone looked puzzled and asked, "What is Corona?" Ohjin, acting like a prophet, declared the cat had eaten plague rats and became a carrier of human destruction. Ohjin kept frightening them, saying the Corona plague had reached this region and would kill half the village in agony. The crowd gasped and screamed in terror. One soldier blushed angrily, shouting that Ohjin thought them fools. Baron Dolly sweated profusely, trembling as he told them to wait, causing the soldiers to hesitate. He turned pale, looking fearfully at Ohjin, quietly asking if it was true. Ohjin sternly nodded, claiming his homeland had suffered the same disaster. He added that to destroy the demon, all mankind had to fight fiercely. The Baron shivered, asking if the cat was the demon's servant. Ohjin calmly nodded, saying it was still weak and could be contained, assuring there was an antidote in his homeland that could be made here too. He quickly winked at Selina, hoping she'd play along, then asked if she agreed. Selina hesitated a moment, then complied, saying she could brew a cure using the cat's blood and herbs. Ohjin inwardly panicked, wondering what absurd story he had just invented. A soldier protested it was madness, but the Baron pondered and then ordered Ohjin to save the cat within a week, or it would be executed before the villagers. Back at the clinic, Ohjin sighed in relief, thanking Selina for lying to help him. Selina smiled coldly, saying she hadn't lied. Making medicine from cat blood and mandrake was entirely possible. However, she said hundreds of mandrakes were needed, making the one in the glass cage turn purple and vein up in despair. Selina tilted her head, asking why Ohjin tried to save that dangerous cat, fearing it might lose control once awake. Ohjin calmly explained that according to his records, the cat was the one attacking animals. The wounds on other creatures were similar, but those on the wolf maw were completely different. Selina studied the data and realized the wolf maw was the true attacker, while the cat had only fought to survive. Ohjin nodded in agreement, but still wondered why the Baron, who once protected Ma, now staged a hunt to blame the small cat. He realized the lavish chase was a cover, and the cat was the real target. Selina understood that the Baron wanted the cat alive because he believed Ohjin's lie. Kim Ohjin pretended anger, then seriously noted the cat's scars were unusual and vowed to investigate. Selina suddenly realized he wasn't as indifferent as she thought. She was stunned to see Kim Ohjin lean close, rubbing his head into the cat's fur with playful excitement. He affectionately nuzzled the cat, smiling with childlike innocence. Selina changed her mind, thinking he was still a fool, while Kay Mandrake fumed with jealousy. At dawn, the clinic shook with eerie howls echoing everywhere. Villagers panicked, fearing the monster was awakening. A fanatic woman declared that Kim Ohjin was exorcising evil to save the village. Another admirer claimed he was a sorcerer from another world. The crowd chanted wildly, praising sorcerer Kim Ohjin, forming a wave of fanatic devotion. Inside, he was exhausted, but gently coaxed the cat to eat. The cat went berserk, scratching him with 3 bloody slashes. He grumbled, comparing its temper to melting summer heat. Selena noted it seemed smaller than a few days ago. They agreed it had weakened from losing magical energy. Kim Ohjin worried as the cat stopped eating, trapped in a cycle of hunger and anger. He sighed, wishing he had his own brand to handle this situation. Suddenly, the pendant on his chest glowed violently, causing sharp pain. From the pendant, the item he imagined appeared, making him scream in shock. The food bar opened itself and flew toward the cat as if guided by magic. The cat devoured it instantly, while Kim Ohjin joyfully coaxed it like a treasure. Selena was speechless, suspecting his sanity. The mark on the cat's forehead changed color, glowing brightly. Selena panicked, realizing something earth-shattering. She declared that the creature wasn't an ordinary cat. She explained it was a monoceros, the legendary one-horned lion spirit beast. When dragons vanished, this species became the sacred emblem of the magical world. Wherever they appeared, barren lands revived and light dispelled darkness. Their blessings came from hearts that generated endless mana. She warned that the horn was a conduit of deadly energy to any mortal who touched it. Kim Ohjin was astonished, calling it movie-like, while Selena explained about monoceros extinction and miniature breeding. This species bowed only to the one healing spirit. He joyfully hugged the cat for eating and named it Jin Sanja. The divine cat meowed happily, eyes shining like stars. He quickly rewarded it with more churu, feeding and praising it. Selena frowned, lamenting that the clinic was turning into a zoo. In the lavish palace, Baron Dolly raged upon hearing the cat had eaten. The trembling soldier reported that Kim Ohjin cradled the cat like a child, and it acted affectionately. The Baron grew suspicious, then received more news that soldiers were panicking over a demon lion and plague. Another soldier nervously asked what that cat really was. He explained that if a monoceros lost control, its energy would turn toxic and explode. Such power could destroy a kingdom, making the Baron ponder Kim Ohjin's words. He grew thoughtful, doubting the doctor's secret from a world that had fought plagues for years. The next morning at the crowded clinic, P.O., the new employee, cheerfully guided Guardian Pink Fairy in for a checkup. Seeing the bustle, Kim Ohjin rejoiced, feeling the clinic was finally truly alive. Inside, Selena grumbled at the noise, threatening to silence someone with magic while the little girl giggled with her teddy. From the doorway, Kim Ohjin shouted, complaining about poor service amid the chaos as customers argued with Selena. One day, Selena left a note requesting a few days off, shocking the entire clinic. Reading it, Kim Ohjin grew angry, saying it was enough reason for dismissal. He hastily hired neighbor Pio at double pay, and she happily agreed. Pio quickly won everyone's hearts with her gentle, animal-loving nature. She worked diligently, moving Kim Ohjin emotionally. He began considering making her a permanent staff member. Suddenly, Kim Ohjin noticed the atmosphere was strangely quiet, unlike usual bustle. The pets that often quarreled loudly now stayed silent, watching each other warily. He glanced around in confusion, finding the stillness eerie. Unbeknownst to him, the cause was the cat Jin Sanja on his shoulder, whose gaze terrified all creatures. Pio loudly called the next patient, and a boy entered holding a panda-like creature. Kim Ohjin was shocked to recognize Ping Ping, once tiny but now enormous. He pointed and gasped, asking if the giant creature was a rat or a bear. The boy smiled, saying it was Floppy, making Kim Ohjin recall the local name. The boy eagerly asked if he knew what Floppy was, leaving Kim Ohjin flustered and denying it. Pio quickly explained that he was a doctor from another world and used different names. She added that he could cure rare cases, making the boy admire him as if he had studied abroad. Kim Ohjin excitedly announced Pio as an official employee, and she beamed with gratitude. He turned to examine Floppy, noticing it was unusually fat yet structured like a hamster, suspecting magical influence. Suddenly, Jin Sanja's eyes flared like fire. It lunged straight at Floppy, making Kim Ohjin panic and shout to stop. Before the attack, Floppy suddenly split into 3 smaller beings. All 3 of them were stunned, unable to believe their eyes. Kim Ohjin clutched his head in confusion, wondering why physics meant nothing here. The boy happily hugged the 3 and eagerly wanted to name each one. The small creatures escaped, running wildly around the room, making Kim Ohjin scream. A swift hand caught all 3 at once. It was Selena who had just returned, coldly saying they weren't Floppy but Blog. She sternly asked the boy where they came from, and Kim Ohjin was curious too. The boy stammered that they were gifts from his father, fearing they were demonic beasts, which Selena agreed with. She locked the 3 in a cage, assuring they'd just be observed, not harmed. Kim Ohjin also promised no interference without permission, easing the boy's worry. At sunset, Selena solemnly told that Blog were creatures created by a mad sorcerer. Kim Ohjin shuddered, imagining a deranged scientist with a creepy grin. Selena said he wasn't entirely evil, though his sins were unforgivable. She was surprised the Blog species, thought extinct, had reappeared. Kim Ohjin widened his eyes, wondering Selena's true age, thinking she spoke like someone 100 years old. Sanja suddenly howled, fur standing up, alerting everyone. A loud call came from outside, demanding Kim Ohjin open the door immediately. The clinic fell silent as they recognized the people standing there. They were Baron Dolly's henchmen, their presence weighing heavily on the air. Dolly stormed in, thundering orders to hand over the beast at once. Kim Ohjin froze, terrified, unprepared for this moment. Selena vanished without a trace. Kim Ohjin muttered about her cowardice, then forced a polite smile to invite the Baron for tea. Dolly coldly said no hospitality was needed, only immediate surrender of the creature. 2 henchmen suspiciously demanded proof the clinic had finished treatment. Kim Ohjin awkwardly explained there was a small problem during the exorcism. He claimed a strange mark had appeared linking him and the cat. He insisted seriously that now the cat could not be separated from him. His explanation made the 2 mock him for nonsense, forcing him to take stronger measures. Kim Ohjin then accused that the cat looked identical to one in the Baron's dungeon. Baron Dolly froze in brief shock, surprised his secret was exposed. Ohjin stepped closer, questioning if they conspired to use the cat to cover up evidence. Kim Ohjin accused that the real culprit behind the village's wounded beasts was the Baron's wolf, not his cat. Dolly reacted furiously, demanding concrete proof for the accusation. Kim Ohjin immediately presented medical records as evidence, requesting wound comparison. One of the Baron's servants rushed up and tore the documents to shreds, enraging Kim Ohjin. Another shoved him aside and stepped toward the cage, ready to act. The cat instantly slashed the servant, making him scream in pain as chaos erupted. Kim Ohjin panicked, considering safety measures like a cage, but feared the outcome. Violent thoughts flashed. He imagined wielding a gun to end the chaos decisively. Finally, he clenched his pendant, ready to summon a mystic weapon. At that moment, a commanding voice rang out. Selena entered with a group of elves, their leader raising a staff to halt all. Baron Dolly gasped, stammering as he recognized who they were. Seeing the World Tree emblem and mana ring, he realized it was Callius, leader of the powerful Ezeron Guild of the Western Continent. The Baron and his men bowed trembling, while Kim Ohjin fumed at hearing his clinic called shabby. Callius said he came because of reports about a rare spirit beast appearing here. Kim Ohjin was amazed, inwardly thrilled to see real elves for the first time. He thought Callius looked like Legolas and guessed Selena had summoned them. Noticing Selena's pointed ears, he froze, realizing she was also an elf. She stepped forward to confirm the cat was indeed their target. Callius chanted, his staff glowing as the cat's form changed dramatically. The cage door opened, and magical energy lifted the cat into the air. He examined closely and confirmed it was the Monoceros, noticing wounds like cuts from the World Tree. Angry, he concluded someone had drained the beast's mana, then sternly demanded Baron Dolly confess. Dolly trembled, denying through tears, unable to admit anything. Callius shouted furiously, demanding to know the real culprit. The 3 subordinates panicked and fled, while Dolly begged for mercy. Kim Ohjin secretly felt satisfied, thinking the spirit beast guild here was scarier than nobles. Callias stated only a rare weapon could cut a spirit beast's horn, and the culprit would soon be found. He thanked Kim Ohjin for protecting the sacred creature and announced it would be taken for care. Kim Ohjin stood stunned, realizing handing it over was the right thing to do. An elf panicked as the cat broke through the barrier, another gasped, but Callias calmly said it wasn't being threatened. The seal around Sanja shattered instantly. The cat dashed forward, hugging Kim Ohjin and rubbing against him affectionately. Callias froze, exclaiming in disbelief at the monoceros behavior. His gaze fixed on the pendant around Kim Ohjin's neck. He recognized it as something familiar, perhaps the very item they sought. Kim Ohjin grew flustered, not understanding why everyone stared at him oddly. He sensed a suspicious tension as if being forced into something. Selena sided with them, shocking Kim Ohjin with a sting of betrayal. Callias sternly assigned Sanja's care to Kim Ohjin, surprising him. He added that normally both should be taken for investigation, terrifying Kim Ohjin. But since Selena accompanied him, Callias felt assured leaving them, leaving Kim Ohjin uneasy. Selena replied reluctantly, deepening his doubts about her attitude. Callias chanted and raised his staff towards Sanja. A new barrier formed, turning into a teardrop-shaped pendant for the cat. He explained it was a protective charm granted by the Ezeron Guild. It helped Sanja restore energy in place of her lost horn, easing Jin Ohjin's mind. The fairy adds that if it's in danger, the guild will receive an emergency signal. Callios gives Jin Ohjin a ring as a token of gratitude. He says it's a treasure imbued with Celestine power. Holding the ring, Jin Ohjin feels uneasy, sensing bad omens with it. Callios assures him the ring also grants protection and sends urgent alerts in danger. Jin Ohjin hesitates, but Callios slips the ring onto his finger himself. The ring fits perfectly, making him worry about its unknown consequences. He jokes that he's never loved anyone yet now has a cursed destiny ring. He politely refuses, saying he's not used to wearing accessories while working. Callios interrupts, comparing the ring to a form of ornamental armor. Jin Ohjin thinks the old man's out of touch, insists doctors need nimble hands, but Callios insists it won't hinder him. The old man chants, the ring glows, then vanishes, leaving a strange tattoo on Jin Ohjin's hand. He stares, frightened yet thinking it looks pretty cool. Callios tells him to touch his chest and say Celestine, and he obeys. Callios' staff shines brightly, reacting to the mark on his hand. Callios says they can now communicate remotely through Celestine. The tattoo turns into a display like a call screen, astonishing Jin Ohjin. He tries the command light, and the tattoo becomes a small flashlight. Jin Ohjin plays with it excitedly while Callios laughs, saying that's only one function. Jin Ohjin thanks him happily while Selena frowns and mocks his sudden change. Callios curiously asks about the necklace around Jin Ohjin's neck. He shyly answers it's a gift from a dragon, shocking Callios. Callios doesn't believe him, saying dragons vanished millennia ago, but he insists he met one. Jin Ohjin is stunned, muttering, "Dragons are extinct?" Callios suspiciously asks if he's from 1,000 years ago, startling him into denial. He explains he once treated a dragon's pet and received the necklace in return. But instead of sending him home, the dragon threw him into this strange world. He dejectedly asks how to return to Earth, and the room falls into heavy silence. Then all three kneel and address him as the healing soul. Jin Ohjin is shocked, not understanding the strange title. He remembers the dragon once calling him that, its bitter smile flashing in his mind. He hurriedly denies it, claiming he's just an ordinary person with no divine power. He grumbles that the dragon summoned him by mistake. It wasn't even sick. Callios sternly reminds him he still carries a dragon's power vessel. He argues he deserves compensation for being forced across worlds, but Callios holds his hand, saying the world is in crisis, and asks about mana. Jin Ohjin is puzzled, never having heard of the term. Callios explains mana is the sacred energy that nourishes all things. Beings with abundant mana become stronger and nobler. Since dragons vanished, magic has faded, Leviathan perished, and the world tree weakened. If this continues, mana will deplete, and humanity will face extinction. To prevent disaster, the races formed the Ezeron Guild. Jin Ohjin likens it to an environmental organization. Kalios mentions the legend of the healing soul with a dragon necklace, destined to save the world. Jin Ohjin freezes, asking if he's been chosen as a hero. Kalios confirms, saying they've long awaited him. He gets goosebumps, insisting it's a misunderstanding. The group kneels, swearing loyalty to protect him. Jin Ohjin panics, begging them not to be so serious. He just wants to leave, muttering curses at the dragon that dragged him into this mess. The next day at the clinic, he cheerfully examines a flying fish named Lumi, finding it healthy. Its pink-haired owner worries Lumi can't fly. Jin Ohjin gently says it's likely old age. She sadly asks if there's any way for it to fly again temporarily, but he says it's nearly impossible. He advises her to accept the natural passage of time. She tearfully reveals her father has been bedridden since last year. He once raised a whole school of flying fish, but since falling ill, they've weakened, with only Lumi still flying. She hugs Lumi and says her father used it to propose to her mother, stunning Jin Ohjin. He shouts in disbelief at a proposal ring with a fish, while Selena calmly notes it was once a trend. The pink-haired girl adds that flying fish are now rare and can glow like bioluminescence. At night they shine like stars. Her father used Lumi in his proposal and lived happily until her mother died. Since then, he's stayed by the aquarium, believing if the fish stop flying, his life will end too. Jin Ohjin sighs, comparing the story to The Last Leaf, finding the old man deeply sentimental. Selena asks why not buy new fish for him, making Jin Ohjin sigh at her naive thought. The girl kneels, begging him to make Lumi fly again to save her father's spirit. Jin Ohjin sighs, stressing Lumi isn't sick, just old. She chokes up, saying if it can't fly anymore, her father will lose all hope. She keeps pleading, but he advises seeing a doctor for her father, since aging can't be cured in fish. He reflects that emotional bonds between humans and pets can surpass reason. He recalls a patient who starved after her cat died, leaving him helplessly counseling her. Another woman cried over her dog's leg pain, threatening to die if it did, showing him how love can harm. Back in the present, the clinic door bursts open as someone rushes in, demanding his promise. It's a member of the Celestine family, and Kalios calls him Spirit Healer. Jin Ohjin panics, then realizes it was all just a dream. Seeing his cat Sanja still asleep, he sighs, bewildered by the strange dream. The next morning, he appears with dark circles, forcing a tired greeting. Bio comments he looks awful. She's also exhausted from lack of sleep. She guesses he's been worried about the flying fish, but he denies it. Bio sternly says the real cause is mana deficiency in living beings. She recalls hearing as a child that flying fish weakened because mana in the air was decreasing. Bio says if mana keeps decreasing, the fish won't fly. Jin Ohjin compares it to environmental pollution disrupting ecosystems. He recalls the dream of the three Celestines, frowning suspiciously. Selena enters, saying not only flying fish, but many creatures suffer mana deficiency, including Sanja. Looking at the regal cat, he remembers it was once a legendary lion. He gently strokes its fur, wondering if it was as cute in lion form. Suddenly he pauses, eyes brightening with an idea. He asks Bio about the pink-haired girl's father's illness and learns it's brittle bone disease. He turns to Selena, asking about common medicines. She lists herbs for bones and pain relief. He asks about side effects, and Selena says bloodroot causes fatigue and nerve numbness. Excited, Jin Ohjin realizes a clue and asks if there's a way to suppress the side effect. Selena replies there is, but it only slows the process. He resolves to try making a formula. Selena points to the back where ingredients are stored, and he looks puzzled. He realizes it's a mandrake plant. He approaches and softly says he just needs a few leaves for medicine. But the mandrake frowns angrily. He awkwardly soothes it, speaking gently like to a child. Suddenly, the plant screams, shaking the whole room. The sound gives him and Bio goosebumps as they cover their ears. Jin Ohjin snaps, scolding it for being too loud, but Bio stops him, telling him not to be harsh. She guesses the plant's upset because he only visits when he needs it, spending all his time with Sanja lately. He thinks it's absurd to worry about a plant's feelings. Bio suggests he give it a name, stunning him. The mandrake moans like sulking for attention. He grumbles that now he even has to comfort a jealous plant. After thinking, he names it Jin Mandal, and it brightens up, showing info. Mandrake species, jealous nature. He laughs and congratulates it, while Selena watches silently with a puzzled look. He returns to the task, gently asking Mandal for 2 leaves. The plant happily plucks 2 fresh leaves and hands them over kindly. He accepts them, slightly uneasy, while Bio smiles, teasing that all beings adore him. Selena steps forward, sternly asking to borrow and examine his necklace. Selena strokes Sanya and Mandal, but both react violently, making her pause in surprise. She realizes the dragon necklace's energy resonates only with Jin Ohjin, not with other beings. She curiously asks how he activates its power. He scratches his chin, explaining he just focuses his will until his chest feels heavy and energy bursts out. Selena ponders, saying the power seems tied to his heart. Jin Ohjin laughs, saying creatures just flock to him like asking for food. He gives Sanja candy as a treat, smiling and petting it. Selena worries candy may harm a monoceros, but he quickly stops it in time. Bio reports the leaves are ground and ready, making him smile in thanks. He carefully brews the medicine from Mandal's leaves, moving with precision. Bio suggests they bring the potion to visit the patient. He agrees, while Selena silently watches, pondering the title Spirit Healer. The scene shifts to the pink-haired girl Luriel's house. She softly enters her father's room, reminding him to take his medicine. But she freezes. Her father has collapsed beside 2 flying fish. She rushes to hold him, choking out a scolding for standing up alone. He explains he just wanted to let Lumi see the night sky, making her cry in anger and worry. She trembles, saying he's too weak and might collapse again. He sighs, saying he doesn't have much time left. She reassures him his condition is improving, but he replies sadly that not everyone dies from illness. He says when people lose their will to live, they've already died inside. Hearing that, Luriel bursts into tears, begging him not to speak so hopelessly. A firm voice interrupts. Jin Ohjin enters, declaring people die from misusing medicine and harming themselves. Luriel is shocked to see him, while the old man asks who he is. Jin Ohjin steps closer, introducing himself as a veterinarian and asserting Lumi isn't aging. He points out the real cause is the side effects of the medicine the old man takes. The old man stares in disbelief, asking why his medicine would affect the fish. Jin Ohjin lifts the fish, explaining that though they live on land, they keep habits from underwater life. One such habit is licking food or loved ones, so Lumi unknowingly absorbed medicine from the old man's hair and beard. The old man is stunned, insisting the fish never licked his hair. Luriel quickly says he just didn't notice. She reveals that every night while he sleeps, they lick his hair and beard constantly. Looking at his glossy beard, he's astonished to realize the truth. Jin Ohjin nods and presents a recovery serum kit with syringes and vials. He advises the old man to cover his head when sleeping. The man jokes hell just shave bald, making Jin Ohjin laugh in agreement. With Pio's help, he begins injecting the fish while she gently calms them. One thrashes wildly, Jin Ohjin holds it firmly, and Pio helps restrain it. After finishing, he sighs and says the medicine will take effect quickly. The 3 fish lie still, exhausted from the struggle. Soon one recovers and soars up, shimmering like a starry night. The old man is overjoyed. When Lumi flies again, he bursts into tears, trembling with happiness, unable to believe it's real. Jin Ohjin watches with a satisfied smile as Bio cheers joyfully at the success. He sees the other fish stirring, confident they'll soon fly too. Luriel tearfully thanks him repeatedly. Suddenly, a small fish darts into his chest, almost knocking him over. Then another bites his hair, making him cry out in pain and confusion. Next, the whole school of fish attacks wildly, and he screams, not understanding what's happening. One fish on the floor trembles strangely. The old man widens his eyes, whispering in suspicion that it might be a strange sign. Then Lumi glows brightly, flying up and radiating a divine light. Jin Ohjin stands stunned as Luriel and Selena watch in awe and admiration. The remaining fish also rise, glowing brightly like a starry sky. Luriel's father weeps with emotion, overwhelmed by joy. Memories return of glowing fish soaring like in the old days. Back then, his wife smiled, saying she had never seen anything so beautiful. He sincerely thanked Fred. He gathered courage to propose, and she accepted without hesitation. In the present, a small fish appears before him, shining like that precious memory. Ohjin is moved by the shimmering scene. Bio excitedly says she now understands why flying fish were used for proposals. Ohjin jokes it's animal cruelty. Bio glares while Selena silently doubts his true nature. The scene shifts to the past, where Selena asks Kalios if he truly believes Ohjin is the healing spirit. He firmly confirms. She's skeptical upon learning the ring didn't belong to him. Kalios laughs, saying the woman will accept it and that the ring suits Ohjin. With a deep gaze, he says being chosen by Monoceros is proof enough, and many others recognize it too. Rumors of the healing spirit begin spreading across the world. Selena anxiously asks if he plans to use Ohjin as bait. She suspects releasing the Baron is linked to this plan. Kalios calmly says punishing evil is easy, but what they need is the truth behind it. He assures her they're only waiting for the secret to be revealed and that Ohjin will not be in danger. He notes how wherever the healing spirit appears, Selena is always nearby. Quite the coincidence. She recalls first meeting him in the village center when he subdued a giant rabbit. His necklace made her decide to secretly follow him. She admits he's special, but nothing like a healing spirit. Kalios tells her to keep watching. Soon she will understand. He reminds her of the prophecy that Ohjin's mission is even greater than saving the world. As dawn shines through the leaves, Ohjin's small wooden clinic glows under the sun, its peaceful sign suddenly shattered by a scream inside. Hes surprised to see another floppy, wondering since one had appeared just last week. Selena calmly holds the white-furred floppy, declaring she'll keep one of the three. The flop beer trembles weakly and Ohjin panics, telling Selena not to squeeze it, but she calmly explains the two flop beer types and the importance of those with cores, saying this one can split. She warns the creature easily divides when stressed, so extreme caution is needed. Seeing it weaken, Ohjin worries and demands it back, but Selena refuses, saying proper care requires deep knowledge. She recalls how ignorance once caused uncontrolled floppy breeding, bringing disaster to entire villages. Ohjin panics, imagining endless floppies multiplying and destroying everything. He yells in disbelief that Selena would keep such a dangerous creature, but she confirms calmly. Furious, he compares it to planting a bomb in an armory, listing all the troublesome creatures crowding his clinic. Bio timidly asks Selena if she got permission from Floppy's owner, saying he values it greatly. Selena coldly replies, permission is unnecessary, her sharp gaze silencing Bio in fear. Bio hurriedly admits she didn't ask, but made a deal instead. Ohjin questions her suspiciously, and she nods guiltily. As Selena leaves, Ohjin suddenly calls after her, while Bio screams in panic. The girl approaches, urging him to drop the matter and whispering that elders say never to touch ear-covered fae. Bio adds that criminals among Western Sky Fae are marked behind their ears, so they hide them. Imagining Selena with a hidden mark, Ohjin breaks into a cold sweat, mumbling it's like a tracking device. He recalls her violent, secretive nature, wondering if she was once a prisoner. He questions whether her crimes were severe enough to involve murder. Trying to reassure himself otherwise, he considers firing her. Selena calmly places Floppy into its cage, reminding him it's opening time, snapping him back to reality. He opens the door but remains uneasy, thinking that though she's skilled, he should find a replacement. The door swings open to a lively morning crowd cheering his name. A man holding a small snake and a woman with a lizard beg him to save their dying pets. Bio quickly calms the crowd, organizing them with numbered tickets for order. Amid the chaos, Ohjin sighs and accepts another busy day, shelving the idea of firing Selena. The scene shifts to Baron Dolly's dark castle, its mossy walls heavy with secrets. Inside, an angry voice demands news about the E0 Guild as Baron Dolly, a silver-haired middle-aged man, trembles with rage. Dolly quivers before a mirror, saying a strange guild spoke of spirit beasts, terrifying him into fleeing. A deep voice from the mirror growls, scolding him for running and losing the Monoceros. Dolly bows low, apologizing and vowing to retrieve it, but the cold voice asks how hell reclaim it from Ezeron. Dolly looks up, revealing that Monoceros is with Ohjin, his eyes glimmering with hope. The mirror voice denies it in shock, saying such a creature can't live among humans. Dolly insists it's true, that Monoceros seems attached to Jin Ohjin. The mirror voice ponders, then rages upon learning Dolly failed to contain the rumor, calling him a fool and ordering all subordinates to gather that night. When the image fades, Dolly collapses into a chair, heart racing and drenched in sweat, trembling after the harrowing exchange. The old butler enters with an ice pack to cool him down. Dolly wearily orders Theodore and Alex summoned at once. The butler replies softly that both were given leave due to exhaustion, leaving Dolly speechless. He screams to cancel their leave, but the butler admits he doesn't know their whereabouts, making Dolly despair that events are spiraling out of control. The scene shifts to a cozy town tavern where villagers excitedly gossip about the Ezeron Guild and Callios Celestis, with one storyteller claiming to have seen them firsthand. A blond man in a blue cloak approaches, astonished that the Ezeron Guild appeared in such a remote village and wondering about their purpose. Amid the bustling market, villagers spread word that Ezeron came to Jin Ohjin's clinic because rare beasts are in danger. In another corner, people gossip that Dr. Jin Ohjin isn't human at all, perhaps a spirit from another world. A scarred man skeptically hears that Jin Ohjin once used mana to tame a giant rabbit and subdued a spirit beast barehanded. He remains doubtful, thinking Jin Ohjin is merely a talented veterinarian. The rumors explode and spread to the lavish, noble circles. In a luxurious salon, a pink-haired lady excitedly says the healing spirit is male, but so beautiful he's mistaken for female. If true, everything will change. She adds that prophecy claims whoever possesses the healing spirit will gain power to rule the entire world. The scene shifts to Monterville, where noble mansions stand among meticulously pruned gardens. Fountains glitter under sunlight, enhancing the grandeur. In a gilded parlor, a blond youth named Andrion enters, apologizing for being late, greeted by a stern, silver-haired butler. Andrion cheerfully orders the first patient to be brought in, but the butler awkwardly reports that none have come. He freezes, thinking his tardiness scared them off, but the butler calmly says no one has shown up all morning. Andrion sits and wonders why the clinic is empty, suspecting Baron Dolly is still spreading slander. Angry, he vows to sue, but the butler explains the cause. A new veterinary clinic in the Commoners District is drawing all clients. Andrion is shocked, unable to believe nobles would visit a peasant's clinic instead of his luxurious one. The butler, confused, says he doesn't know why, only that the place gained fame quickly. Andrion sneers that they must be using cheap tricks. He folds his arms proudly, declaring his Royal Academy background makes him incomparable to commoners. He decides to rest for a few days, confident that treating Lady Marianne's unicorn will sustain him. The butler cautiously informs him that Lady Marianne canceled her appointment. Andrion freezes, shouting in disbelief, fearing his worst thought has come true. The butler confirms Marianne switched to Dr. Jin Ohjin's clinic. Andrion slams the table in fury, ordering a carriage prepared immediately. The scene describes Andrion Havenkraut's luxurious clinic, where he takes pride in healing creatures cherished by humans. One morning, Lady Marianne Arquette brought her young unicorn Lulu for help, anxiously asking about its condition, as Andrion reassured her gently. Under the light shining on his handsome face, she blushes, and he smiles confidently, enjoying how he soothes a lady's heart. He insists he always separates work from emotion, except for one special woman, Marianne Arquette. From the first meeting, her pink hair and gentle gaze made him believe fate destined him to heal her beloved unicorn, Lulu. Andrion feels deeply hurt and betrayed upon learning that Marianne entrusted Lulu to Kim Ohjin for treatment. He snaps out of thought, orders the clinic closed, and goes to Marianne's house himself as the butler sighs in agreement. The scene shifts to the grand Ashit mansion with a fragrant rose garden and shining marble columns. In the bright parlor, Lady Ashit, a sharp-eyed noblewoman, asks why Andrion came unannounced. He sternly says he worries for Lulu, claiming a commoner shouldn't treat such a sensitive creature. The lady interrupts gently, revealing that Kim Ohjin is actually a woman. Andrion is stunned and exclaims in disbelief. The lady smiles slyly, saying that the doctor, though common, is so talented and beautiful she's called a fairy or spirit. The word fairy makes Andrian's eyes light up with sudden interest. He imagines the girl's ethereal beauty, wondering how dazzling she must be. The lady laughs, admitting she made it up to test him, and orders servants to escort him out. As he's dragged away, he protests he's not lecherous, but the lady coldly thanks him for introducing himself. Thrown out, Andrian shouts that he only loves Lady Marianne, making the lady sigh in annoyance. He insists he truly wishes to marry Marianne, but the lady coldly orders him expelled despite his pleas. After being thrown out, Andrian rides back silently, the carriage echoing only with rolling wheels. On the way, Andrian resolves to meet Kim Ohjin himself, confident in his knowledge of unicorns. He believes the idea that unicorns only like pure women is wrong. Unicorns recognize people through an extremely sensitive sense of smell. They despise the scent of blood and male sweat. If careless, humans may be attacked by their horns. He boasts of knowing they adore women with clean, gentle fragrance. Andrian thinks of Lulu, comparing its intelligence to his and recalling past failures. He once experimented many times before discovering the secret of approaching it. One must bathe repeatedly and use perfume matching the unicorn's owner's scent. He imagines the poor vet Kim Ohjin being thrown off by Lulu's disgust. In his fantasy, he appears as a gallant savior before everyone. Andrian dreams of protecting Marianne and living happily with her, laughing smugly. Unable to hold it back, he bursts out laughing inside the carriage. The servant sighs wearily, treating it as a daily occurrence. After a long trip, the servant reports they've arrived at Belmore. Stepping down, Andrian is surprised by a crowd gathered in excitement. He hears townsfolk thrilled about seeing a unicorn for the first time. Andrian secretly rejoices, expecting to see Kim Ohjin embarrassed in public. Lulu neighs loudly, its horn glowing in high alert. Andrian watches with delight, praising Lulu for doing well. But he's stunned to see Kim Ohjin riding Lulu, who looks happy. Adrian freezes, unable to believe his eyes. Kim Ohjin calmly pets Lulu, praising its gentleness. Adrian refuses to believe it, thinking Lulu never let anyone approach so easily. Marianne approaches, surprised that Lulu is friendly to a stranger. Adrian panics, convinced Kim Ohjin used some deceitful trick. He orders Selena to touch Lulu, suspecting she did something before. Adrian suspects Selena used magic to make Lulu unusually tame. But as soon as Selena touches it, Lulu bites her hard, leaving deep marks. Even injured, Selena stays calm while Kim Ohjin worriedly asks if she's okay. The crowd gasps in fear as Adrian grows confused by Lulu's normal reaction. Kim Ohjin suggests first aid immediately. Selena only groans softly but stays composed. He brings her into the clinic as Pio disperses the crowd and closes the door. People whisper about the bite while Adrian broods over Lulu's gentleness only toward Kim Ohjin. He looks up to the clinic's second floor, planning to secretly observe through a window. Adrian approaches a mossy tree, vowing not to be outdone by that commoner. Once a skilled climber, he swiftly scales it like an insect. He finds the perfect spot to see clearly inside the clinic. Pulling out a silver monocular, Adrian begins closely watching their every move. He sees Kim Ohjin bandaging Selena so expertly that he must admit her skill. Suddenly, a strange mark on Kim Ohjin's hand catches Adrian's eye. He is horrified to recognize it as the emblem of the noble Celestine family. Celestine is a powerful elven bloodline far above other nobles. Adrian can't understand how a commoner bears such a prestigious symbol. Meanwhile, Kim Ohjin calmly tends to Selena, unaware of being watched. Selena notices the wound is poisoned, while Kim Ohjin reassures her it's not serious and wonders at Lulu's odd behavior. Kim Ohjin laughs, teasing that Lulu dislikes Selena as Marianne and the unicorn enter suspiciously. She quickly apologizes and offers to pay all of Selena's medical costs. Kim Ohjin smiles kindly, saying the fault is his, not hers. His words make Marianne blush as she shyly asks about Selena's identity. He replies she's his assistant and sub-doctor, prompting Selena to flex teasingly. Marianne observes them and smiles, thinking they work well together. She praises the clinic as new but small for Kim Ohjin's talent. Hearing her suggestion to expand, he's surprised while she smiles cunningly. Kim Ohjin secretly thinks she has no idea how shabby his old clinic was. He recalls the hardships of working in a cramped, broken, noisy place. He laments his crushing debt, worrying Marianne as she steps closer. She realizes he has endured many struggles in both work and life. Marianne sincerely praises him, making Kim Ohjin flustered and blush. She gently offers to sponsor his clinic, leaving him stunned and suspicious of her intent. Suddenly, Lulu roars at the cat Kim Sanja, throwing the room into chaos. Kim Ohjin panics, grabs the cat, while Marianne screams in fear at the unicorn's rage. Once soothed, Lulu calms down as Marianne strokes it, worriedly asking about its strange behavior. Selena stands nearby, pondering the odd situation. She explains that unicorns are usually gentle with small creatures, especially the monocorous kin. Marianne immediately gets angry, thinking Selena insulted Lula's temperament. Selena calmly confirms it, shocking Kim Ohjin with her bluntness. Marianne restrains her anger, scolding Selena for rudeness, but Selena coldly replies that uninvited guests deserve no respect. Marianne flushes red, raising her waiting ticket while Selena mocks her for buying it. Marianne retorts, proudly announcing she bought it publicly with gold, making the crowd rush to trade tickets as she smirks. Pio mutters about strange nobles while Lulu starts sweating and trembling in pain. Suddenly, Lulu screams violently, causing Pio to yell in panic. It thrashes so hard that a bookshelf tilts to fall, and Marianne cries out for help. At that moment, a man bursts through the window, shouting a warning. Selena reacts instantly, catching the shelf to prevent disaster, then looks at the man sprawled on the floor. The crowd stirs as Kim Ohjin frowns, asking if the man is still alive. The man looks up with a bright smile, despite scratches, introducing himself as Adrian Havenkraut and kindly greeting Marianne. Marianne gasps, demanding why he's there, while Adrian tries to appear elegant despite his pain. Pio curiously asks who he is, and Selena coldly reminds him to pay for the broken window. Adrian straightens his clothes, smiling confidently and apologizing for the commotion. He steps forward, kisses Pio's hand, and introduces himself as a veterinarian who protects small lives. Kim Ohjin frowns slightly, inwardly annoyed by his showy behavior. Adrian then kisses Selena's hand, stunning her, while Kim Ohjin angrily demands why he broke in. Adrian replies dramatically, then suddenly accuses Kim Ohjin of meddling with Lulu, confusing him completely. Adrian moves closer with fierce eyes, demanding Kim Ohjin confess what he did to the unicorn. Kim Ohjin calmly says Lulu is fine and rebukes Adrian for trespassing. Adrian grows furious, calling him useless and comparing him to something called Sibarak, leaving Kim Ohjin puzzled. Selena coolly explains it's a carnivorous plant that pretends to be weak to lure prey. She adds the term describes someone who looks gentle but is dangerous. Kim Ohjin sighs in relief, then suddenly realizes he's been insulted. Marianne becomes angry, scolding Adrian for being rude to Kim Ohjin. Adrian hurriedly defends himself, claiming his words have reason. He turns to Kim Ohjin, bluntly asking if he has ever loved anyone. The question makes Kim Ohjin blush and nosebleed, while Selena panics and tells him to wipe it. Adrian points at the mark on his hand, suspiciously questioning its origin. He declares it's the insignia of the Celestine family, symbolizing elven bloodline or betrothal. Pio exclaims in shock, thinking it's an engagement mark, making Kim Ohjin flusteredly hide his hand in denial. Marianne also asks in confusion, but Kim Ohjin cuts in, saying the gift was from someone named Kalios, making things more awkward. Pio gasps. Marianne blushes at the possible relationship, while Kim Ohjin awkwardly looks to Selena for help, but she coldly refuses. Suddenly, Lulu groans, trembling violently with darkening eyes that draw everyone's attention. Adrian panics, calling its name in fear of something serious. Lulu suddenly vomits something out, then collapses on the floor. Kim Ohjin urgently orders a light, his tone tense. While examining, he wonders why the condition worsened so quickly. After checking, he notes intestinal inflammation symptoms, but no respiratory distress. Adrian places his hand on Lulu's belly and suddenly exclaims with surprise. He turns to Marianne, happily announcing that Lulu is pregnant. Both Kim Ohjin and Marianne shout in astonishment. Marianne freezes, unable to believe what she just heard. She skeptically asks if Adrian hit his head or misspoke, suspecting his diagnosis comes from the earlier fall. Adrian raises his hand firmly, insisting Lulu is pregnant since the nausea matches a mare's. Selina nods, saying excessive alertness is also a common pregnancy sign. She turns to Kim Ohjin, urging him to give his opinion. After close observation, Kim Ohjin confidently confirms Lulu is indeed pregnant. Marianne stands stunned, tremblingly denying the impossible. She insists Lulu lives in a tightly secured greenhouse where no creature could enter. Kim Ohjin calmly replies that the result is still clear and invites her to verify it herself. He hands Marianne a strange tool, prompting her to ask what it is. He explains it's a stethoscope and instructs her to place it on Lulu's belly to hear the heartbeat. Then he moves it lower, telling her to listen more carefully. A faint but steady rhythm sounds through the device, confirming life inside. Marianne reels in shock, holding her head in disbelief. She staggers, and as Kim Ohjin moves to catch her, Adrian rushes forward tensely. He suspects Kim Ohjin did something dangerous, but the latter calmly invites him to try it himself. Adrian wears the stethoscope incorrectly, making Kim Ohjin sigh and adjust it for him. When he listens properly, Adrian shouts excitedly, claiming Lulu is 4 months pregnant. Pio helps the stunned Marianne sit as she repeats 4 months, calling it impossible. Pio curiously asks why Lulu is kept so strictly instead of roaming freely. Marianne pales, revealing Lulu was chosen to mate with Prince Thomas Warhorse under strict supervision, making this pregnancy inexplicable. The scene shifts to a special room where Kim Ohjin administers an IV to Lulu as Adrian angrily accuses him of plotting something. Kim Ohjin calmly replies he's only giving fluids, but Adrian keeps pointing suspiciously at the medical equipment. Kim Ohjin patiently explains Lulu is dehydrated and needs an IV to restore electrolytes faster than drinking. Adrian freezes, eyes full of admiration for the advanced medical knowledge, prompting Kim Ohjin to tease his overreaction. He stammers praise for the direct blood infusion's effectiveness, then keeps asking about the flow rate until Kim Ohjin irritably tells him to be quiet. Meanwhile, Marianne bites her nails, her mind spinning with confusion. Selina approaches softly, reassuring her that the breeding plan with the prince's warhorse isn't a total failure. She explains unicorns are very selective and may live alone if they find no suitable mate. However, once every decade, a unicorn may choose a common horse, producing a rare golden hybrid. Adrian excitedly suggests offering Lulu's offspring to the royal palace as a gift for the prince. He insists the prince would surely be delighted to receive such a precious creature. Selina immediately objects, saying the idea is dangerous and unrealistic. She stresses that hybrid unicorns are legendary and that the father remains a mystery. Adrian speculates that one of the 3 stallions at Marianne's estate could be the father. Marianne agrees, saying they must identify the true mate to plan protection measures. Adrian starts to add more, but Marianne suddenly turns to Kim Ohjin, urgently asking for his help. Kim Ohjin awkwardly refuses, yet Marianne keeps pleading, stepping closer. The scene pierces Adrian's heart, leaving him frozen in shock. Kim Ohjin tries to explain he can't determine bloodlines with a stethoscope. He sarcastically says the showy Dr. Adrian might be better suited for the task. He adds that Adrian sensed the pregnancy by intuition, so he's surely more perceptive, making Marianne agree instantly. Selina interjects, saying it's simple, the pregnant unicorn will want to stay near its mate. She asks Marianne if Lulu acted restless on the way, and Marianne replies no. Selina concludes that Lulu's mate must be nearby, within about an hour's travel. She asks how Marianne arrived, and Marianne says by carriage while Lulu had her own. Maria suddenly panics, covering her mouth and begging them not to mention it. The scene shifts to the Ashid stables, where the butler pets a horse while muttering about routes, until a loud call rings out. The butler turns in surprise, asking why the young lady appeared there. Lulu shows intense emotion, rushing to a brown horse and nuzzling it affectionately. Marianne stands stunned, shouting in confusion at what's happening. She pulls Lulu back, tremblingly scolding her for being mad. A noble unicorn shouldn't bond with a mere horse. Her harsh words make the brown horse droop its head in sadness. Kim Ohjin mutters beside her, joking that the scene feels like a dramatic romance. Andrew steps forward gently, saying that despite Marianne's objection, this horse is Lulu's best partner. Marianne angrily mocks the idea, calling it absurd. Kim Ohjin firmly states Lulu has already chosen the horse and they've conceived, so they must not be separated. Selena adds that a pregnant unicorn suffers severe stress if parted from its mate. Marianne gazes at the sorrowful Lulu, confused about how this could have happened. The scene shifts to the Ashit mansion's main hall, heavy with tension. Suddenly, Lady Ashit shouts furiously, refusing to accept a lowly horse's intimacy with a noble unicorn. Joseph and the brown horse are brought in. Joseph trembles, apologizing and claiming he knew nothing. He explains he's only the coachman and never meant for the two animals to meet, sweat dripping as fear fills his eyes. Lady Ashit suspiciously asks if Joseph intended to exploit the unicorn for fortune or fame. Joseph panics, denying he ever had such intentions. The lady cuts him off, declaring harsh punishment and refusing to hear excuses. In a corner, maids whisper. One calls the lady cruel. Another wonders how love between animals can be stopped. And a third asks why Lulu was sent to the royal palace. A sharp maid quietly reveals Lulu was taken there for the crown princess selection ceremony, where Marianne will also attend. The group gasps with excitement and curiosity. A brown-haired maid mocks that it's a ploy to please the royals, saying Lulu would live in luxury if things went well. Another sneers that Lulu lowered herself like her mistress by loving a carriage horse. Before she can continue, a stern figure appears. The head butler shouts for silence, making everyone bow in fear. At that moment, Marianne enters, hearing every rumor and feeling uneasy. A maid rushes in, crying that Lulu is in danger and vomiting blood, making Marianne sprint away in panic. Lulu lies dying, breathing faintly with dull, fading eyes. Marianne kneels, her trembling hand touching the faded fur as she tearfully calls Lulu's name. A maid sobs that Lulu's morning sickness made her stop eating and suddenly cough blood. Marianne recalls Selena's warning that pregnant unicorns are fragile and hurt easily when separated from their mates. Her face darkens as she realizes the separation caused Lulu's collapse. The maid nervously warns the condition could worsen. Marianne urgently asks when Dr. Kim will arrive. The servant replies that a message was sent this morning, but he's far away, suggesting a local healer. Marianne thinks briefly, then loudly orders bring it here. The maid asks in surprise, and Marianne firmly says it means the brown horse. The horse is led in, thin, dirty, and heavy with sorrow. Some servants grimace at the stench and try to object, but the head butler scolds them harshly. He angrily accuses them of disrespect for bringing such a filthy beast before the lady. Marianne coldly signals him to stop and commands they bring the horse inside. As it steps in, its eyes suddenly brighten, neighing powerfully toward Lulu. Lulu lifts her head slightly, a spark of life flickering in her weak gaze. The two animals approach, nuzzling affectionately, forgetting everything around them. Marianne watches in silence, moved, then orders towels and warm water to wash the horse herself. The maids gasp in shock, but she cuts them off, telling them to make soup for Lulu instead. Soon warm water and towels are brought in. Marianne gently wipes away each patch of mud from the horse's body with rare tenderness. Once clean, its healthy form reappears. She softly mocks herself, saying even a useless horse could move her heart. Memories flood back, her mother's scolding voice and her parents' disappointed eyes. She recalls Lady Ashit's fury when her noble daughter dared love a merchant's son. Thinking of it, Marianne sighs softly, blaming herself for being foolish. Watching the two horses nuzzle, she feels a pang and whispers that Lulu could have lived in the grandest luxury. A warm voice asks if that's truly what Lulu wanted, making Marianne turn in surprise to see Kim Ohjin. He calmly says animals aren't bound by status like humans. Lulu never saw herself as noble. As he speaks, he takes out medical tools from his bag. He gently gives Lulu an IV, warmly advising to let her stay beside her mate. Marianne stays silent, her gaze softening with emotion. Kim Ohjin says he'll leave medicine, though it will only help temporarily. He stresses the only real cure is to let the pair remain together. Marianne nods in agreement, feeling peace settle in her heart. As Kim Ohjin prepares to leave, she nervously asks him to stay longer until Lulu stabilizes. He smiles and declines, saying many patients still await him. He adds he can't leave his assistant alone to handle risks. Marianne quietly agrees. Kim Ohjin smiles, reminding her the follow-up care will be handled by his assistant. She asks in surprise, and he points toward a tree where Andrian sits playfully grinning. She instantly calls his name. Both look up at Andrian, their faces showing helpless confusion. He flips down gracefully, adjusts his coat, and apologizes poetically for the risky stunt. Marianne frowns coldly, calling it not rude but criminal, while Andrian hastily explains he only wanted to check on Lula's condition. Andrian scratches his head awkwardly, saying he had sent word but was blocked for being on the blacklist. Kim Ohjin curiously steps forward, picks up a strange object from Andrian's bag, examines it, and questions him suspiciously, making Andrian blush. He remarks the crude stethoscope looks cheap and clumsy. Andrian stammers an excuse that it's just the first prototype and will be improved soon. Kim Ohjin smiles, takes out a fine stethoscope, and hands it to Andrian, saying a doctor should have good tools. He leans closer, softly telling him to get to work and joking he's far busier than most. Watching Ohjin leave, Andrian silently admires him, thinking he's kinder than his cold appearance. From afar, Kim Ohjin smiles to himself, noting that eccentric man can't hide his admiration. At that moment, Lulu begins eating a few small bites after the IV. Andrian observes gently, saying she's showing recovery. Marianne thanks him, and he replies that love is the best medicine, praising her care for Lulu. Marianne bows her head, admitting her stubbornness caused Lulu's suffering and that the pair should have stayed together. She strokes Lulu sadly, confessing she might have been jealous of her. Andrian asks in surprise. She smiles wistfully, saying she was once innocent, but got caught judging others by status. Andrian interjects, asking if that is how all nobles are. She shook her head, saying she never cared about class as a child, only drawn to her lover's eyes. Marianne admitted she once would give up everything for that gaze, but left for both their happiness. Andrian pondered, asking if she was happy. She softly said unsure, and he smiled, saying, "True love is often beside us, unnoticed." He stepped closer, his sincere gaze making Marianne slightly flustered. She turned away, regained composure, and declared she'd withdraw from the Queen's selection. Andrian's heart raced as she continued. He hastily took out a small gift box, nervously trying to confess but couldn't finish. Marianne suddenly looked afar, calling Jin Wuzhen admiringly, leaving Andrian stunned with the half-held box. His heart roiled with anger, cursing Jin Wuzhen for stealing her heart again. Marianne calmly said she would seize power for herself instead of relying on the powerful. Andrian was dumbfounded, unable to grasp her meaning. Marianne's eyes blazed as she declared she would win Jin Wuzhen, the symbol of healing, as her first step toward power. She suddenly held Andrian's hand, thanking him for their friendship and hoping it would last. Her words froze Andrian. Jealousy flared inside, vowing never to forgive Jin Wuzhen. At the clinic, Jin Wuzhen sneezed, wondering who mentioned him. He turned to Pio, who was reading a report telling her to continue. She read that Lulu would have a new companion. Jin Wuzhen smiled, pleased, as Pio excitedly added they wanted him as Lulu's private doctor. He sighed, refusing due to work but hesitated upon hearing tenfold pay, reminding himself to stay at the clinic. At that moment, he was in surgery on Samir, the 75-year-old two-headed gluttonous snake. He carefully cleaned the snake's mouth but couldn't finish, frowning at the stubborn residue. He told Selena to pump water, then nodded to prepare anti-inflammatory medicine and gauze. His focus impressed everyone, who took notes rapidly. Suddenly, he discovered a foreign object stuck deep in Samir's mouth. After minutes of effort, he pulled out a shiny ring and shouted in joy, making the room erupt. The snake's owner thanked him emotionally, calling it an ancestral treasure. Jin Wuzhen proudly said it was thanks to Gear Carry, confusing everyone. Selena pointed at Samir's other sleeping head, reminding him the snake had two heads. Jin Wuzhen froze, teary-eyed, realizing half the surgery remained. The snake's owner cheered to boost his spirit. Soon after, people brought in a painting depicting him battling the snake like a mythical hero, making him scream in shock. The owner proudly showed it while Jin Wuzhen trembled at his distorted face in the art. The painter enthusiastically promised to finish and gift it, making him beg not to and at least add clothes. At that moment, Samir suddenly opened his eyes, glaring fiercely at Selena, who worried whether the sedative was strong enough. Selena prepared a sleep spell, but a warning shout came as a man leapt in front of the snake's mouth. She froze, realizing it was Andrian Havenkraut, the noble doctor she'd met before. In an instant, the snake swallowed Andrian whole, leaving everyone stunned. The clinic fell silent, filled with panic. Outside, a temporarily closed sign hung. Some waiting people murmured, surprised it shut so early. A blonde girl holding a small dog sighed, regretting the trip to see the famed doctor, then decided to visit the next village. At that moment, Andrian suddenly crawled out, covered in slime, trembling with rage and cursing Jin Wuzhen. He fumed, thinking Jin Wuzhen disappointed many women, yet called himself a healing spirit. Back at the mansion, he irritably asked his butler about the healing spirit. The butler said it was a mythical being granting power to the chosen. Andrian frowned, calling it absurd nonsense. He angrily thought Marianne was naive to believe such childish fairy tales. Then, staring into the mirror, he muttered that his face suited the spirit title better than Jin Wuzhen's. The butler coughed softly, saying rumors spread due to Jin Wuzhen's extraordinary healing skills. He added that Jin Wuzhen once made flying fish fly again and turned demon cultists into tame cats. He pointed to the stethoscope on the shelf, reminding that even Andrian kept Ohjin's gift like a treasure. Startled, Andrian snatched it, stuffed it in his pocket, stammering that he was just holding it and would return it soon. He muttered, asking if anyone had copied the design. The butler firmly said yes. Soon after, Andrian climbed a tree nimbly, hanging his bag, grumbling why returning an item required tree climbing. He pulled out a silver binocular, observing the clinic under the excuse of studying the competition. In sight, Jin Wuzhen was treating a giant snake. Andrian marveled, realizing it was truly a two-headed serpent. Curious, he watched, wondering what Jin Wuzhen was doing. It seemed like dental treatment for the creature. Observing closely, Andrian confirmed Jin Wuzhen was scraping plaque and rinsing thoroughly. He noticed anti-inflammatory medicine applied to the wounds to prevent spreading. Despite his irritation, Andrian had to admit Jin Wuzhen's medical skill far surpassed his, even as a top Royal Academy student. Suddenly, he noticed the snake's tail twitch, a sense of dread rising. Realizing it was waking, he shouted a warning and saw its other head appear behind Selina. Andrian dashed down, smashing through the window, yelling, "Watch out!" amid chaos. But before he could act, the snake swallowed him whole again, shocking everyone. Andrian's cries echoed from the snake's belly while Jin Wuzhen rubbed his forehead, exhausted, thinking he must be dreaming. Serena said seriously he should still be intact inside and planned to use a sleep spell. Jin Wuzhen stopped her, saying to wait because the creature's condition was highly abnormal. He pointed out the snake's tongue had turned purple, and it was suffocating from swallowing something too large. Some helpers panicked, asking how to save it and begging for guidance. Selina hurried to cast a spell, but Jin Wuzhen immediately stopped her. He explained sedating a choking creature was extremely dangerous. Turning to Pio, he ordered first aid as taught, and Pio quickly complied. The two tightened around the snake's body, ready to squeeze it. Ohjin shouted to hold steady while Selina waited for the signal. She counted down, then struck hard, sending both doctor and snake flying. Selina murmured it was the Heimlich technique, the method for rescuing the choking. The first hit failed, Ohjin yelled, "Once more!" After several heavy blows, the snake finally spat out something slimy. It was Andrian, landing face first. Everyone sighed in relief seeing he was alive. Some praised Jin Wuzhen's miraculous rescue skills, calling him a divine healer, making him awkwardly smile. He quickly told Selina to check Andrian, but she slapped him repeatedly, prompting Ohjin to shout in protest. After a few harsh slaps, Andrian's swollen cheeks twitched, showing he was alive. Selina told Jin Wuzhen that Arian was alive, but his state made Ohjin sigh, realizing more waiting was needed. She added he'd need time to fully wake. Arian had blocked all the twin-headed snake's magic with his body. That made Jin Wuzhen and Pio pale, thinking Selina's power was terrifying. Samir's eyes welled with tears after being loved by Selina's fists. Jin Wuzhen said Samir was stable with only bruises. Selina handed over medicine, worrying both men about her strength. As evening fell, Jin Wuzhen announced the treatment complete and warned to be more careful with belongings. He emphasized the fault was the owner's for letting the pet swallow things, making the man blush in shame. Jin Wuzhen sternly warned not to let it swallow people again, nearly moving the owner to tears. Days later, Jin Wuzhen grew furious upon seeing the painting The Snake and the Hunter. The man said it was a gift from the Count titled The Great Rescue Operation, making Jin Wuzhen immediately drive it away. Selena said there was also a statue becoming famous, making Jin Wuzhen scream in outrage. He clutched his head in despair, thinking everyone in this world was insane. Andrian slowly woke, confused about who he was and where he was. He gradually remembered spying on Jin Wuzhen's clinic. When the snake revived, he had died saving her. He smiled, thinking it was a fitting end for a veterinarian. He wished to be reborn as a unicorn with a beautiful heroine by his side. A sharp chest pain scared him, thinking he was being reborn. In pain, he suddenly gasped awake, coughing violently. Selena looked at him gently, saying he was awake. Andrian blushed, seeing her sitting on him, thinking she was his new master. Selena stood up and told everyone he had awakened. Andrian sat up, rubbed his swollen face, and asked where he was. Selena advised him to rest a few days since magic might cause dizziness, and he nodded in agreement. Jin Wuzhen brought tea, asking if Andrian could sit up. He handed it to Andrian, saying it was a recovery brew with mandrake leaves, and told him to drink it all. He added he'd contacted the Astrid estate, asking Andrian to rest there for a few days. Andrian declined out of embarrassment, but Jin Wuzhen reassured him that health came first. He told Andrian to rest well, then left the clinic. Watching Jin Wuzhen's back, Andrian felt admiration and guilt for his past jealousy. He vowed to become as respectable as Jin Wuzhen, then noticed a strange paper on the desk. It was a 5-day treatment bill totaling 6 gold and 668 silver coins with tax and fees. He read an extra charge for mental distress compensation for treatment disruption, raising the total to 6 gold and 688 silver. Glaring at the paper, Andrian cursed inwardly for being overcharged. The scene shifted to the clinic, where Jin Wuzhen discussed an upcoming sterilization case. An old couple panicked, thinking he meant gender change for their pet, and he clarified it was only neutering. The patient was Julian, a 12-year-old Fenrir wolf capable of repelling evil spirits. The owner hugged Julian, weeping and accusing Jin Wuzhen of cruelty for wanting to neuter him. Jin Wuzhen calmly explained that overbreeding harmed Julian's health and his offspring's. The owner trembled, pleading since he thought Julian was still young. Jin Wuzhen held back anger, asking if he wanted to become a Fenrir exterminator, silencing him. The man protested again, saying neutering would ruin life's joy, making Jin Wuzhen sigh in frustration. He shouted that reckless breeding shortens lifespan and harms both owner and pet. After being scolded, the couple left crying while Pio helped them schedule surgery. Jin Wuzhen sat mumbling he always had to preach about sterilization. Pio entered, reporting the next patient was the beloved pet of a close friend, asking him to take extra care. Jin Wuzhen smiled, agreeing and praising Pio as his best assistant, making him blush in thanks. A black-haired girl entered with a 7-month-old fire chick, saying she wanted a checkup. Jin Wuzhen admired the bird's glossy feathers and vibrant energy. Pio joked Bob was her healthiest pet, and Jin Wuzhen praised her care, making her sigh sadly. After the exam, Jin Wuzhen held Bob and cheerfully declared it perfectly healthy and fit for the healthiest chicken contest. The girl said she worried because Bob had recently lost some weight. Jin Wuzhen explained it was just molting, not illness. She mentioned Bob sometimes convulsed in sleep and had throat pain, while he suspected health anxiety. Pio patted her shoulder, reassuring her that Bob's throat was naturally weak. Jin Wuzhen confirmed no abnormal symptoms, calming her somewhat. He then called for the next patient to enter. When the clinic stayed quiet, Pio suddenly rushed in shouting that Bob had vanished, startling Jin Wuzhen. The owner said she only stepped away briefly and returned to find Bob gone. Jin Wuzhen calmly ordered all exits sealed to begin the search. Selena quickly informed everyone to remain seated in the waiting room, causing anxious murmurs. Some complained their pets would go wild if held, and at once their ducks and dogs began shrieking loudly. Selena frowned, her eyes glowing red as she shouted, shaking the air. Everyone instantly fell silent in fear, sitting straight and waiting for orders. Jin Ohjin returned, saying they had searched everywhere, and asked if Bob had any favorite spots. The girl replied she didn't know and feared Bob had escaped. Jin Ohjin insisted Bob couldn't open doors or jump out, so it was still inside the building. Bill stepped forward, saying Bob especially liked men. Jin Ohjin raised a brow, repeating skeptically. The girl scratched her head, replying not just liked, but obsessed. She said Bob was famous as the male crazy bird. Jin Ohjin recalled Bob clinging to him during the exam, silently understanding why. Selena guessed the bird might be in a man's room who was asleep. Sure enough, in Andrian's room, Bob was snuggling against him. Jin Ohjin arrived, frowning that it was indeed its type. He turned to the girl, sternly asking for the real reason behind this. He reasoned Bob's disappearance couldn't be random, since its speed and size couldn't escape notice unless planned. He looked her straight in the eye, demanding a clear explanation. She stayed silent for a while, then said she did it because no one believed her. She added that if a famous doctor like him declared Bob sick, then it vanished, the others would finally believe. The girl bowed her head, teary-eyed, begging Jin Ohjin to save Bob. She revealed that if Bob were deemed healthy, it would become prey. She said a hunt organized by Baron Gleiss was coming, attended by a royal prince. She choked out that Lady Clyde planned to cook Bob for the feast. Hearing this, Jin Ohjin and Pio's faces darkened with rising anger. Pio shouted furiously, unable to believe someone would eat their friend's pet. The girl stammered that all their chickens died from disease last year. Jin Ohjin questioned why they had to choose Bob when there were many other dishes. She answered that giant fire chickens enhanced vitality, leaving him speechless. She added that the breed symbolized prosperity through fertility, so it was hunted for weddings. Jin Ohjin rubbed his head, grumbling at that absurd eat-to-grow-strong logic. She said Lady Clyde had long targeted Bob. Now she threatened to evict them from the farm if they didn't hand Bob over. Pio trembled with fury. Outraged, they used housing to force someone to give up their beloved pet. The girl clenched her fists, desperately begging Jin Ohjin to claim Bob had an infectious disease. She believed if he confirmed it, they'd abandon the plan, pleading for him to save Bob. Jin Ohjin pondered for a long time, then sadly refused, saying he couldn't do that. Pio cried out his name in shock. Selena also froze at the decision. Jin Ohjin said firmly that lying would make him unworthy as a doctor. He declared that deceiving for gain was not healing, but betraying life itself. Andrian coldly countered that life should come before professional ethics. He stepped closer, questioning whether Jin Ohjin still deserved to be a veterinarian. Jin Ohjin firmly replied that if he faked Bob's illness, he'd have to declare it contagious to humans. Then Bob would be labeled a dangerous source of infection. All animals near it could be quarantined or even destroyed. Andrian fell silent as Jin Ohjin continued that he might later admit lying, but the damage would already be done. He concluded that doctors exist to protect life and cannot trade countless lives for one creature. Anyone who fails to understand that is unfit to be a doctor. The room fell silent, the air heavy. The girl burst into tears, sobbing apologies. Outside, Bill gently comforted her, saying there was still a way while she despaired, ready to flee with Bob to escape the nobles. At that moment, Jin Ohjin's voice called from afar, telling her she didn't need to run. He approached with Selena, holding Bob, saying though he couldn't help as a doctor, he could as a lover of animals. His words reignited hope in Pio and the girl. Jin Ohjin continued, instructing her to visit Baron Dolly's estate to spread rumors into the Gleiss manor. He stopped mid-sentence, turned, and called out to the eavesdropper hiding behind them. Caught! Andrian panicked, trembling at how Jin Ohjin had noticed him. Jin Ohjin looked straight at him, saying he needed Andrian's help for an important mission. The scene shifted to Baron Dolly's mansion, where a grand banquet sparkled under glowing lights. Nobles whispered about whether Lady Chist's daughter would skip the prince's selection event. Lady Gleiss quietly calculated that if Lady Marianne withdrew, her daughter Laura would gain great advantage. She dreamed of the moment Laura became the prince's consort and silenced all who had looked down on her. Suddenly, Andrian Havencrow appeared, politely asking Lady Gleiss for a private talk, leaving her flustered by his charm. His presence drew every gaze toward Lady Gleiss, making her feel radiant among the crowd. Bashfully, she asked Andrian about his education and royal experience. He smiled, claiming to have met the prince. When she inquired about his impression of the prince, Andrian said the man was very perceptive about trends. He described the prince as attentive to style and fashion. Lady Glyce instantly thought of redecorating the palace and asked about the prince's food preferences. Andrian, surprised, asked if she was planning a menu for the prince. He continued amiably, admitting that preparing a royal meal was the most nerve-wracking task. Then he offered to introduce a merchant who supplied him with the finest ingredients. Hearing that, Lady Glyce eagerly wanted to meet the trader, seeing it as a golden opportunity for her plan. The scene shifted to an old wooden hut in the forest, the weak moonlight glinting off its thatched roof. Andrian led Lady Glyce inside, confidently saying this was the meeting place, while she nervously glanced around the shabby cabin. Inside, Jin, Wuzhen, and Selina were already in disguise, cheerfully introducing themselves as Luan Vui Toi and Zhen Nuo. Seeing their odd demeanor, Lady Glyce grew suspicious, thinking they might be frauds. Jin Wuzhen confidently presented the trending noble dessert, Tangaloo, a sweet no one could stop after one bite. Selina opened the tray, revealing glossy, colorful candy skewers glimmering under the light. She invited Lady Glyce to taste, piquing the woman's curiosity. The lady bit one and instantly melted into bliss from the crisp sweetness, trembling with delight. The mix of strawberry and sugar danced on her tongue like a flavor waltz. Astonished, she praised the rare, exquisite taste, believing they were true merchants. While she was enchanted, Andrian subtly suggested seeing the true treasure, a magic plant said to reverse time, called the Eternal Plant. The words left Lady Glyce frozen in shock. Jin Wuzhen burst out laughing, praising Andrian's wit, then solemnly introduced the miraculous ingredient, eternal chickpea, said to delay aging. Both Andrian and Lady Glyce stared blankly at the plate of chickpeas. Jin Wuzhen continued, saying it slowed aging and prevented senile illness. Reading the info sheet, Lady Glyce shouted with joy as it also treated constipation and hair loss. Overexcited, she slammed the table and declared she'd buy everything. Jin Wuzhen calmly replied the stock was rare, so no extra could be sold. He added the entire batch had already been reserved for His Highness, with Andrian pretending to beg but being refused. Hearing this, Lady Glyce was startled, realizing the buyer's daughter was of marriageable age, filling her with anxiety. Jin Wuzhen stroked his chin, pretending to ponder, then asked how she guessed, secretly confirming it true. Lady Clyde panicked, shouting she'd pay 10 times more and to sell it to her now. Jin Wuzhen coldly replied that their goal was not money. He declared they pursued truth, love for humanity, and perfect health. Behind him, Selina darkened with regret, wanting to comment but staying silent. Lady Glyce froze, embarrassed at exposing her vanity. Andrian interjected gently, saying, "Sell it to me. Helping others is the virtue of merchants." With his support, Lady Glyce was moved, admiring his gallantry. As she grew eager, Jin Wuzhen and Andrian exchanged a knowing glance, realizing she was trapped, and he slowly agreed to sell. Holding the prized goods, Lady Clyde beamed with joy, feeling she had gained more than expected. But Jin Wuzhen interrupted, saying there was one small detail to remember, making Lady Glyce suspiciously ask what it was. He told in a mysterious tone that the seeds carried the power of the fire rooster, an ancient fiery bird spirit. Of course it was his fabrication, yet he went on about the seeds' mystical connection. He warned that anyone who ate them must avoid chicken dishes for a time, also a made-up rule. Lady Glyce gasped, stammering, asking what would happen if she ate some by mistake. Jin Wuzhen sternly replied that the effect would reverse, rapid aging and illness would follow. Hearing that, Madame Clyde cried out in panic. She was torn between regret and fear, unsure whether to return the goods. Andrian was about to speak, but Jin Ohjin interrupted, joking about his grandmother's obsession with giant chicken dishes. All three burst out laughing, and Andrian teased that he was hopeless. Madame Glyce, though a bit annoyed, joined the laughter, calling the fire chicken dish outdated. The next day at the clinic, Bob's guardian cried with joy, shouting thanks for his rescue. Jin Ohjin brought out a delicate silver cage, saying it was a special carrier for Pop, paid for by Madame Glyde. Staring at the shining gift, The girl asked in surprise if the doctor was really giving it to her. He nodded and half-joked that losing it would be troublesome. She thanked him repeatedly while he smiled awkwardly. Pop clung to her while Mandrake frowned and grumbled. Ohjin kindly said to contact him if she needed help and asked if she wanted extra work. She happily agreed, boasting of her skill with beasts, but Mandrake spat at Pop, making the fire chicken glare angrily. Bob rushed to bite Mandrake's head, making the plant scream in pain, and the girl panicked, yelling for them to stop. Pop was locked up, and Ohjin sternly warned her not to bring it next time. She quickly agreed. He turned to Andrian, saying he'd reward him for his help. Andrian asked in surprise, and he added the plan succeeded thanks to him. Ohjin handed over a money pouch, saying it was gold and silver coins. Andrian accepted, moved by his generosity. But seeing only a few coins, he trembled with anger, as Ohjin said expenses were deducted, leaving 312 silvers, making Andrian shout fraud. Selina interjected calmly, saying she was the one who treated the case, and Andrian instantly changed tone, flattering her skill. Selina warned not to overlook side effects. He praised the medicine's effect, and she said she'd prescribe more. He thanked her profusely. After Andrian left, Selina asked Ohjin if he planned to keep him, suggesting he needed another doctor, making Ohjin ponder. She added that the man wasn't bad and worked well enough. Ohjin hesitated but refused, clutching the pouch with ambition in his eyes. Selina mocked his greed, hinting he'd regret it soon. The scene shifted to a grand palace where servants quietly arranged tea on a jade table. A majestic voice spoke, mentioning the upcoming hunting contest and expressing disappointment at not obtaining Monoceros. The speaker was Prince Theo, the third prince of Anvaner, looking down at the kneeling man and asking for an explanation. Baron Dolly trembled and pleaded, saying he had stalked many times, but the hospital was never empty. Theo sipped his tea leisurely, saying waiting for an empty chance was too shallow. He said the best way was to make the target show off before the crowd. Baron Dolly bowed repeatedly, praising the prince's wisdom and calling himself foolish. The dog beside them barked loudly, heightening the tension as Theo gravely mentioned the suspicious behavior of his two royal brothers. He declared that to crush rebellion he needed Monoceros power, threatening Dolly that failure would doom him as well. When the dog kept barking, Theo furiously shouted. Dolly, terrified, apologized and stammered that it was a wolf, not a dog. He turned to soothe it with a sweet voice, luring it with a cucumber. The wolf glared suspiciously as if cursing, and Dolly flattered it by promising apples later. Suddenly, the wolf's eyes were drawn to the tray a servant was carrying. It lunged forward, ignoring the Baron's frantic excuses. The wolf flipped the tray, shocking everyone, and Theo shouted in despair over his lost chickpeas. The wolf had swallowed them all, its belly swelling round. Theo's face turned purple with rage, shouting for Dolly to leave despite his frantic apologies and promised to repay tenfold. The scene shifted to the clinic where Ohjin reported the surgery for the wolf Fenrir was complete. He warned that after anesthesia it could easily fall, so it must be closely monitored. The old owner burst into tears, lamenting that his beloved child had become neutered and was scheduled for a CT next week. After writing the notes, Ohjin called in the next patient. The visitor was Bob's guardian. He asked in surprise if Bob was sick again. She replied it was Bob's sibling named Chip, making him laugh, realizing why it wasn't as friendly. She said it often slept and coughed. Ohjin examined and concluded it was just a mild cold with muscle weakness. The chick kept sneezing. He advised giving medicine regularly and warm water with brown sugar daily. She gratefully thanked him. The next day, the girl returned with a droopy dog, saying Chip hadn't improved, and now her dog was also ill. Seeing both the chicken and dog weak, Ohjin suspected cross-species infection. He advised immediate hospitalization for both to prevent spreading, and she agreed at once. The following day, she hurried in with 3 more sick chickens, reporting all were infected. Ohjin grew tense, a sense of fear rising as he observed the situation. He realized many other patients showed similar symptoms, suspecting an outbreak. He sternly ordered everyone to cover their mouths and noses, wear gloves, and avoid cross contact among animals. Bio quickly directed to move the sick animals to the second floor, keeping other cases on the first. On the second floor, Ohjin treated non-stop but noticed the medicine was ineffective, fearing the disease's worsening. Selena added that the terrifying part was the pathogen affecting all species without distinction. Ohjin felt uneasy as the prophecy of a spreading plague had come true. Days later, villagers crowded the clinic begging for help for their pets. He apologized, saying the hospital was full and advised them to seek elsewhere. A girl replied that all other clinics were packed, throwing the scene into chaos. From afar, Duke Belmore arrived with the rabbit Elizabeth, urgently asking for treatment. Ohjin was shocked that even a house-kept rabbit was infected. He suspiciously asked if the Duke had taken it outside. The Duke hurriedly said it only played indoors. He explained he had bought a turtle as its companion, but the turtle brought the illness, shocking Ohjin. He apologized, saying he couldn't take more patients. The Duke asked why. Ohjin awkwardly said all beds were occupied, and the Duke fell silent in thought. He turned to ask his butler about vacant buildings nearby and was told 2 existed in the back alley, 1 unused. Ohjin was secretly stunned by the Duke's wealth. The man pointed at a map and generously offered a building for temporary use. Impressed by the Duke's generosity, Ohjin boldly asked if he'd also adopt unemployed people. The Duke fell silent. They then opened a temporary treatment zone, decorated softly in Elizabeth the Rabbit style. Looking at the completed building, Ohjin sighed in relief, thinking things were finally stable. But the real issue appeared. Only 2 staff had to manage 2 medical facilities at once. He gritted his teeth, deciding it was time to hire another doctor. The scene shifted to Andrian Havencrow's mansion, where he lamented the lack of patience, confused about the cause. The butler reminded him he rarely stayed at the clinic, so patients left. Andrian furiously blamed Ohjin. The butler calmly said there was an epidemic in that area and they'd soon seek help. Andrian instantly regained his spirit, smirking and waiting for Ohjin to beg him. At that moment, a servant delivered a letter from Ohjin. Excited, Andrian ordered it read aloud, eager to hear how humbly the man wrote. The butler read, Ohjin said he had avoided contact, but now had no choice to ask for help due to emergency. He emphasized that Andrian was free, so he should bring all medicines and tools to assist. Ohjin promised 2 gold coins per hour plus bonuses based on attitude. Andrian angrily tore the letter, shouting this wasn't begging, but the butler added there was a postscript. Selena was exhausted. Hearing her name, Andrian immediately packed, saying he'd leave at once, surprising the butler who asked for how long. He firmly replied he'd stay until the outbreak ended because a doctor must be where sickness exists. The butler frowned, muttering it was just because of his crush. The scene returned to the chaotic clinic where Bio explained quarantine rules demanding strict compliance. Nurses and assistants busily worked, while Bob's guardian recorded infection times and symptoms. Nearby, Andrian, after 12 straight hours of exams with dark circles under his eyes, kept diagnosing a flock of birds, luckily not infected. Selena, after over a day of testing medicine, still worked tirelessly, sweat running down her cheeks. Ohjin, exhausted after 18 hours of duty, gently administered injections as the entire team was worn out from overtime. Then a new patient appeared. It was the small dog, Mia. Ohjin approached to check, asking Han if it was infected too. Duke Belmore stepped forward nervously, saying 2 more were sick, explaining they were part of his hunting hounds. He introduced them as Mia, the yellow one, and Sinva, both preparing for the upcoming hunting contest. Seeing their condition, the Duke lamented the outbreak's timing so close to the event. The Guardian reported the rooms were full. Ohjin told them to clear more space and promised to find a solution, asking for patience. The Duke bowed in gratitude, though still uneasy. The clinic was now packed with patients, filled with heavy tension and pressure. Andrian wearily complained about taking more cases beyond what 2 doctors could handle. Ohjin remained firm, insisting they must at least try to save the animals. Bio reported some owners wanted to take their sick pets home, believing it was just a mild cough. They argued the symptoms didn't affect daily life much. Ohjin gravely replied that while that might be fine for humans, Animals couldn't be released like that. He warned that once hunting dogs lost value, they'd be abandoned, making Pio and Andrian uneasy. He sadly added that Sun might be kind, but other owners' reactions were unpredictable. He expanded his concern, saying all creatures could be forsaken when illness lingered, for they had no voice of their own. Night fell, the ward still lit, work continuing under heavy tension. Ohjin tried to create antibiotics using his power, but every attempt failed. He muttered in frustration that things weren't easy, exhausted to the brink of collapse. Selena stopped him just in time, warning that overusing dragon power could damage his heart. She reminded him to be patient, as the disease's origin remained complex and unclear. Inwardly irritated, Ohjin thought this again involved demonic energy and considered learning magic. When Selena asked how long he'd slept, he admitted 3 sleepless days but claimed he was fine. Selena lightly tapped his head, making Ohjin fall asleep instantly. She gently carried him to bed, whispering that no magic was needed to knock him out. 5 hours later, Ohjin woke in panic, shouting and confused about where he was. Bob's guardian entered with a food tray, cheerfully inviting him to eat and recover. Seeing the tempting fried egg, Ohjin praised its flavor, thanking her as he devoured it. The girl happily said the egg was freshly laid by Bob that morning, making him freeze and ask where Bob was. She answered it was at home, confusing him as to why she hadn't brought it. She shyly explained Bob was completely healthy, not sick at all. Ohjin asked in shock if Bob was the only one uninfected among all the pets. She nodded, adding that Sun was also perfectly fine. Hearing that, Ohjin suddenly realized the anomaly, both untouched amid the outbreak, and began deducing the cause. After breakfast, he immediately returned to his lab to continue researching. At that moment, Sun got provoked by Mandrake, growling and threatening to hit it while Bio rushed to stop them. Mandrake ignored him and spat directly on Sun's head. Ohjin shouted loudly, "That's it!" He remembered Bob had also been spat on by Mandrake. Perhaps that was the key to immunity. Sun furiously bit Mandrake, making the plant scream in pain. Ohjin collected Sun's saliva sample, dropped it on a slide, and added infected leaves for testing. The leaves quickly turned lush green, bursting with vitality. He cheered joyfully, declaring he had found the cure to save the whole area. Ohjin hugged Mandrake in celebration, while Bio emotionally praised it as the greatest demon being. Mandrake warily stepped back as Ohjin discussed with Andrian how to extract its sap safely, deciding to dilute the saliva instead of squeezing it. He turned to ask Selena, who was quietly preparing something. She didn't answer, simply placed a glass of fragrant liquid before Mandrake. Mandrake curiously sniffed it, then drank greedily in delight. Ohjin excitedly pointed and cheered as he watched it drink happily. While Mandrake was distracted, Selena skillfully collected sap dripping from its leaves. Ohjin stared in amazement at the sap-filled glass, praising her and asking what she had given it. Selena replied she mixed Mandrake's favorite sugar water with herb tonic and a bit of diuretic to stimulate sap flow. The shimmering liquid made them frown, wondering why it carried a faint cilantro scent. The man smiled brightly, announcing it as medicine, assuring there was nothing to fear since it was plant-based, then began mixing. The next day, the small dog woke up, its eyes bright. Bio joyfully reported its cough had eased and health stabilized. Looking at the animal, he pondered, then gently hugged it, softly praising and sighing in relief. The clinic still echoed with pitiful cries from injection pain. The next patient shouted loudly but remained surprisingly calm. He softly comforted it. After giving the final shot, he asked if it was the last dose. Bio checked and confirmed yes. As he recorded the dosage, a loud knock and shout came, "Ohjin, come out! We're here to arrest you!" Baron Dolly appeared again at the clinic door. The nearby crowd murmured, wondering what trouble they were stirring now. Though irritated, he kept a friendly tone, asking what they wanted. The Baron replied coldly and threateningly, saying it had been a long time. He accused him of illegally spreading animal disease and charging unlawful treatment fees, declaring his arrest. Facing the accusation, he calmly pointed out the first contradiction. The Baron growled, asking if he intended to deny it. He turned to Sanja inside the room, harshly citing her words about a demonic servant causing the plague. He felt a headache recalling his careless words when first meeting Sanja. He admitted saying that, but insisted the treatment had worked, as the mark on her forehead had vanished. The Baron raged, claiming his true goal was profit, and ordered his capture, also demanding seizure of the cat. He realized the real target was Sanja, with the epidemic merely an excuse. Bio shouted in protest, declaring Dr. Ohjin wasn't what they accused. The Baron glared at her with disdain, coldly scolding her for speaking out. Bio angrily cited Dr. Eugene's contribution in stopping the outbreak. He raised his hand to stop her, signaling that was enough and calming her. Suddenly, he said there was no need to argue further and that he would go with them, shocking everyone. However, he requested to sedate Sanja before leaving. The Baron interrupted, saying it wasn't necessary since they had an iron cage ready. He strongly objected, insisting Sanja was special, and if she were harmed, both sides would face consequences. Baron Dolly nodded in agreement, telling him to do it quickly. He turned to Selena asking her for the medicine, while Sanja thrashed and lashed her tail violently. As he received the vial, he whispered to her, reminding her of their signal and expressing trust. Selena replied sternly, confirming she was ready. Seeing her act off plan, he frowned, reminding her to use magic to help Sanja escape instead of acting rashly. She nodded in agreement, while he wondered why she looked so disappointed. The drug took effect, and Sanja slowly drifted into gentle sleep. He carefully placed the cat into the cage, signaling it was time to leave. Suddenly he shouted, casting a blinding spell that temporarily blinded their foes amid screams. He urged Selena to quickly use magic to clear their escape path. Instead of chanting, she unleashed a barrage of punches, knocking the soldiers down. He sighed inwardly, blaming himself for giving clear instructions she still ignored. One man shouted that they were escaping. Baron Dolly roared, ordering pursuit and prioritizing capture of the cat over the man. He grabbed Jin Ohjin by the collar, shouting in fury and commanding the destruction of the entire place. The underlings rushed in, starting to wreck the clinic. Bio stood in their way, declaring no destruction allowed and warning she'd show no mercy if they harmed the hospital. The gray-haired thug growled back, but Andrian stepped out, coldly ordering them to stop. He threatened that if they touched Bio, they'd pay dearly, making the attackers freeze as they realized he was a noble. Jin Ohjin sighed quietly, lamenting that Andrian hadn't appeared sooner. Seeing the tide turn, the Baron ordered retreat and to take the prisoner away. He was led off amid Bio's desperate cries. He only smiled, assuring her he'd return soon. He told everyone to care for the clinic in his stead and asked Selena to watch over Sanja. The villagers murmured anxiously, one girl suspecting the doctor had caused the outbreak. Another questioned it, recalling rumors he once fought demons, receiving a confirming nod. They said Baron Dolly would soon hold a public trial and eagerly awaited it. Meanwhile, at the mansion, Jin Ohjin, exhausted, tried to rest briefly. Baron Dolly stormed in, furious, shouting for him to wake and realize his situation. The yelling made him slowly open his eyes, calm and silent. The Baron barked harshly, demanding he reveal the hiding place of the cat and the spirit. He sat up, yawning and replying indifferently that he didn't know, inwardly relieved, guessing Selena had helped Sanja escape safely. The Baron smiled wickedly, calling out 2 wolves to threaten him, warning not to die early to avoid trouble. He noticed one wolf trembling oddly and seriously asked about its health. The Baron admitted it had seemed weak since morning. He pressed for more details and heard the worried man say the animal had blood in its urine. He immediately requested to examine it, making the Baron roar in anger. He calmly approached the dog, gently soothing it for comfort during the check. After examining, he concluded it was a severe herniated disc. He shouted to prepare for urgent surgery or the animal's life would be in danger. The mansion burst into chaos as everyone scrambled to gather medical tools. Outside, Sanja growled anxiously as Selena soothed her, assuring Ohjin was fine. Sanja's fur now gleamed silver like a divine beast. Inside, he ordered Mama moved to a sterile room, preparing drugs and tools per his written list. He quickly began surgery, performing with precision and confidence. One man handed the Baron a maid's apron, making him frown but accepted as infection protection. He asked the assistant about Mama's body temperature, heard it was normal, then ordered anesthesia after 5 minutes. He further instructed full sterilization of all used instruments, and the assistant promptly obeyed. Baron Dolly stood nearby, eyes tense as he watched his beloved dog. Suddenly he turned to the door, shouting to close it as strong wind gusted in. The door slammed shut with a loud echo. In the hall, a butler doubted aloud whether Ohjin could be trusted. Another agreed, saying they'd never heard of the inguinal disc hernia he mentioned. A young man sneered, calling it baseless nonsense. Baron Dolly snapped angrily, ordering silence, then looked at Mama's mother's portrait with sorrow. He thought heavily, wondering if Angela had once suffered the same illness. Piles of files stacked high, covering the desk completely. The master looked displeased. A servant delivered news. All were petitions pleading to release the imprisoned doctor. The messenger revealed the sender was a noblewoman, shocking him since she came from a powerful family. He muttered that the sender threatened to report slander to the king if the man wasn't freed. Picturing her wrath made him tremble with anxiety. A man burst in joyfully, announcing the surgery had just succeeded before the lady's eyes. Overwhelmed to tears, the nobleman rushed to her side. The healer confirmed the operation was successful. The patient needed only 7 days of rest before removing the metal brace. The nobleman approached, embracing the healer tightly, tearfully thanking her and calling her his treasure. Yet his gaze turned to the doctor, half asleep from exhaustion. A subordinate explained he was sleep-deprived from recent hardships. The man added they would return him to confinement immediately. Seeing the red marks from chains on his ankles, the nobleman ordered them removed. The subordinates bowed and complied. Kim Ohjin was taken back to the holding area, facing the familiar metal barrier once more. From inside came a familiar voice that dazed him, making him think he'd returned to his parents' home. He told himself it must be a dream. In the room, his mother sighed worriedly, hinting Ohjin's clinic was in trouble again. His father spoke irritably, reminding her they had forbidden him from veterinary work, calling it disgraceful to care for beasts. The scene shifted to a dark forest, where a creature emerged and licked his face warmly. He recognized Monoceros entering his dream. "Cut back to the noble's office," Theo raged, shouting over the loss of the strange creature. The Baron awkwardly explained that it seemed to have fallen into the hands of Unit Eon. Suspiciously, he questioned the information sharply. The Baron stammered that the spirit accompanying Ohjin was linked to Eon Legion's intelligence and reported on suspicious spirits. Hearing this, Theo grew angrier, clenched his fists, and shouted at their incompetence. Facing his fury, the Baron bowed, apologized, explained the pressure from citizens and nobles, and asked if Ohjin could be released. John Theo roared in rage and ordered them to act as he deemed right. The next morning, Ohjin was freed and told to bring Mama in 3 days for device removal and care. The servant accepted the paper and bowed in thanks. The bald man cheerfully said he'd bring Bipin for treatment. Ohjin smiled in agreement and was escorted out. At the gate, the crowd cheered brightly at his appearance. He asked in confusion why everyone had gathered. Duke Beomo laughed loudly, saying they came to welcome him. Marion eagerly added that if he had delayed, they would have stormed the mansion. Touched by their sincerity, Ohjin expressed heartfelt thanks. Sanja suddenly rushed in to hug him, accidentally knocking Mandrake and Pop away. The little cat happily licked his cheek, making him laugh brightly. Turning to Selena, he sighed in relief at her safety. She only replied coldly. He told Sanja he had seen someone identical to her in a dream last night. Bio curiously asked again, and he nodded to confirm. That dream made him more certain that the veterinary path was right. From above, someone questioned letting him go, while a servant said a horned creature had appeared and vanished in the cell, clearly not a cat. Baron Dolly coldly denied, saying they saw nothing. The servant trembled and apologized, while Dolly smiled faintly, thinking Ohjin had won. Days later, upon seeing the surgery costs, Dolly exploded in rage at the absurd price. He gnashed his teeth and swore never to forgive that Ohjin.